What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise post-game show. That game was an absolute nail-biter, the first overtime game of the season, and CJ McCollum makes an absolute statement against James Harden, who has been tied to the Blazers in trade rumors in the past few days. CJ McCollum drops 44 points, including the game winner in overtime on a kick-out pass from Damian Lillard, and he had just a phenomenal game, put the Blazers on his back, had a huge third quarter to really help the Blazers fight back in this game. The Blazers were down 15, 16 points early on, and the Rockets give a good effort considering they were running out a patchwork lineup. The Blazers had many issues throughout this game, but were still able to get the win. So hopefully they're able to take from this and build towards the future where they can put better games than we saw tonight. So we will have some constructive criticism. We will have some positive things to say. It should be a more positive mood than opening night, and I'm happy about that. Welcome in to the stream. Hopefully you guys had a good Christmas, and it's nice to get back to some Blazer basketball, at least when it's a win. So yeah, the Blazers moved to 1-1 on the season before two matchups against the Clippers and the Lakers coming up. Give me your reaction to the game in the comment section. I'm curious as to how you guys are feeling about this game. There's a lot of angst early on. I'm happy we won, and I'm feeling good because we won, but there's also a lot of issues that the Blazers had in this game that really make no sense. But let me just say this. During the last 5 minutes of regulation, the Rockets kind of hung tough, but our offense was so much better than it was the rest of the entire game. Our offense looked great the last 5 minutes. We were moving the ball, getting really good shots. You had Dame get the most wide-open layup he might have all season long. At least that comes in a half-court setting. You know, he'll get breakouts here and there, but we had CJ McCollum get a wide-open dunk, and it was Nurkic doing the playmaking, doing the assisting. I want to see much more of that, and when we saw it, it was great offense, and that's just another reason why it's frustrating when the Blazers run too much isolation, because we see stretches where they move the ball well and the offense looks great, and we saw an impressive defensive stretch down the stretch in regulation, and then in overtime we had some impressive defensive possessions. Some possessions they still scored, some possessions we didn't collect the rebound and then gave up a bucket, but we saw flashes of really good defense late in that game, and this team played a lot better during the last 5 minutes of regulation and during the 5 minute overtime period than it did throughout the entire game. So, you know, that's definitely a positive, but let me just say this. If we played like that all game, we win by maybe 25 points against this lineup because we were the much more talented team. So I'm going to toss it over to Eric. Eric, what is your takeaways from this game? What do you want to focus on? What's your initial thoughts in reacting to this?
Well, much like you, I'm glad we're talking about a victory versus blowing that game, because you can't let a team like that with a score like Harden stay in the game like that, because it's dangerous. You're playing with fire, and it almost bit them both in regulation and in overtime tonight. But I'm just happy we're talking about all these problems in a win versus if we were 0-2 tonight and had all these problems that we're talking about still. So the hope is that you can still fix some of these things if you win some of these games. It's the same thing I said most of last year. We just had to hover a little above 500, which we weren't able to do for the most part last year. But if we grinded out some of those wins, it would have kept afloat while we had the injuries. And this year, while we're trying to figure things out, for some reason, everyone forgot how to play basketball and needs to relearn or something. So, at least according to most.
Dude, it's crazy. We are one CJ McCollum made three from having an extremely negative post-game show. You know what I mean? It all hinged on that three. And here's the thing, man. I like the roster makeup of this team. This team is not playing good basketball right now. This was not a well-played game. But you know what? We won. So I'll be happy about the win and then just try and focus on, okay, where do we need to get better? Because we see flashes, and that's good. At least we see a flash here and there of a good brand of basketball. But for the majority of this game, our brand of basketball was very, very poor. And CJ stepped up and got hot in the third quarter. And as I've always said, I'm cool with iso ball if somebody's hot, right? If CJ's hot, I'm cool with giving him the ball and letting him make things happen for himself or others. He did also have 8 assists in this game to go along with his 44 points. So, if a guy's hot like that, I'm cool with it. The thing was, nobody was hot like that, and we were not getting good looks because we were consistently isolating Melo, Kanter, Dame, CJ. We'll talk about Dame's struggles in a bit, but CJ got hot, and I'm cool with giving him the ball, letting him make things happen. It's kind of like when he starts to go cold or isn't as hot, I want to see us move the ball and move players and cut the way we did down the stretch in that game, because here's the thing, we're so talented, like we can win games by just giving CJ and Dame the ball and them getting hot. Right? We can win games.
That's how we've won games the last 8 years, yeah.
The problem is when one of those guys isn't hot, we still need to be able to have a functioning offense, and far too often when one of those guys isn't hot, our offense completely bogs down, it's stagnant, we don't get good shots, and we really, really struggle. And that's what we saw during the first half of this game. So I think this game is a perfect example of like kind of what works for the Blazers. When somebody's hot, the iso ball can work. It can be effective. You give the ball to CJ, he's on fire, he put the team on his back, got the team back into the game. But we were down in the first place because that's the type of basketball we were playing, and nobody was going, and there was no rhythm to the offense. So, and then it's funny because once CJ went cold, we started moving the ball a little bit. He didn't necessarily go cold, but he didn't have the same rhythm he was when he was draining shot after shot in the third quarter. Down the stretch in the fourth quarter, we start moving the ball. We start cutting. Dame has a beautiful lob pass to Derrick Jones Jr. cutting back door. That might have been my favorite play of the game. I know CJ hit the game winner, but like that type of stuff is what we need, because you got guys like Dame and CJ, and the defense just watches them. They just eye them. Okay, you need a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. If his guy's not paying attention, just cut back door, catch a lob, get a dunk. You had CJ and Dame with layups off a Nurk pass when they were running some off-ball action together, setting a screen for each other. CJ slipped a screen, got dunked. That type of stuff is what we need more of. I loved it down the stretch. I'm frustrated that we're not seeing more of that early on in this game, because I think we would have won comfortably and not needed a CJ McCollum game winner with 6 seconds left to win this game.
A shout out real quick to Apples for the $2.99. Yeah. Whatever A unit that is. He said the second half cured his anger. I was pretty livid at halftime. Let me just say that.
I mean, you're talking about we're playing against a team whose their 7th, 8th, and 9th men were Bruno Caboclo, Jayshawn Tate, who I think is on two-way contract, undrafted rookie who played in Australia last year, and Broderick Thomas, who is a D2 player last year who only averaged 18 points per game on the D2 level last season. That was Broderick Thomas, and he was getting minutes. So, Christian Wood looked phenomenal. Harden looked phenomenal. So they had a couple good performance by them, but we have so much more depth than them and so much more talent in that lineup that you can't be too happy with a 2-point overtime win off of CJ McCollum 3 like that. You can be happy about the win itself, but when looking back at this game, it's like it really probably should not have been that close.
Yeah, I thought one of your tweets nailed it. I'll bring it up real quick so I don't misquote it.
Yeah.
But
I tweeted a lot during this game. I was happy with the Twitter fingers.
You did tweet a lot.
You can follow us on Twitter. Why do you find that? You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Tory Jones YT. I probably need to make this little name tag below us a little bit brighter, especially with Eric wearing black. But you can follow Eric at Hoops Jock. You can follow the channel at Blazers Uprise YT. Links are in the description below. Shout out JM for the $5 donation. He says the lack of ball movement is infuriating. Also, we need to play Giles. If we put this roster in a competent system, the ceiling would be so high. Shaking my head. And yeah, man, this roster shows flashes of playing really good basketball, and that's why it's frustrating when they look as bad as they do during the first half, because I believe in the potential of this roster if they play the right style of basketball, right? If this roster was crap, I wouldn't really care as much, you know what I mean? It'd be like, okay, well, who's going in the top 10 of the draft? But this roster is legit. This roster is really talented, in my opinion. So it gets frustrating when we play a style of basketball that I don't think is conducive to success. So, I don't know exactly what tweet you're going to reference from me, but because I tweet a lot, but what do you got?
Well, this is the first half. You said, the thing is, this team is so much more talented than Houston that we could continue playing awful brand of basketball and turn this around. I won't say the S word, and go on a run and win by 10. And that doesn't excuse anything, which is exactly what I was thinking this whole game. I never I can't say never. I shouldn't say that because there were, obviously a couple times at the end there where we almost lost.
Mm-hmm.
But I never thought we were going to lose this game, even when we were down like 15. I think we got down by 17 at one point in the first half, or early in the third quarter. But yeah. So I never really thought that was the issue. Like we were more talented than them, like you said. There's no reason why we couldn't get back in this game. We could get a guy like CJ or Dame get hot and be right back in the game. That's what always happens with this team. The problem is we have to rely on CJ hitting 9 threes and scoring 44 points.
To win by 2 in overtime.
Mm-hmm. When we have a more talented roster, and this game shouldn't have been that close. And I feel like a lot of people are going to dismiss the coaching mistakes in this game because we won the game. Obviously, not most of our audience because they're a little smarter when it comes to this stuff now. But I feel like I just got the feeling watching this game that our coaching staff is going to cost Dame a chance to win a ring legitimately. And it's just really, really sad in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go that dark after a win, you know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but we don't got to go there. But, yeah, shout out Shaggy Squid for the 5 Australia. We get. I think this is Australian dollars, man. We got a lot of support in Australia, so shout out to you guys. He said Stotts really left Nurkic and Kanter to get cooked by Wood instead of putting Giles on him to match athleticism. His bad coaching got hidden by Damian CJ. And man, Giles is the perfect guy to throw at a Christian Wood because he has the size and he also has the foot speed to be able to match Christian Wood, who is phenomenal tonight. I'm telling you guys, like this guy has all-star ability. This guy is really, really talented. And I was saying that this offseason, people were like, why do people like this guy so much? He doesn't have much of a sample size. You can just watch him play and tell that he's really talented. And it's not even just the offensive end. How many times did Christian Wood switch onto a guard and do a good job defending like CJ McCollum or Damian Lillard out on the perimeter? Like, he is one of the most switchable bigs in the league. Like, his foot speed is really impressive for his size. So, like, on both ends of the floor.
Right around Nurk a few times, too, on offense, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, and that's the problem. Like, Nurkic doesn't quite have the foot speed he did before the injury. I don't think it's that much different like some media guys would try and say, Kevin O'Connor. But, Christian Wood is a very quick big, and he blew by Nurkic a couple times. It would have been nice to see, just to see Giles go up against him and how Giles looks in the game. I like Giles' ability. We can touch on Giles here in a bit. But going back to just kind of the general theme is And it's especially with the bench unit. We can't play isolation basketball and expect to have success in the playoffs. If we play this style of basketball in the playoffs, it doesn't matter if we're playing the Jazz, the Nuggets, whoever, we lose this game by double digits. And we saw that on opening night against the Utah Jazz. We lost that game by double digits. But we were going up against a patchwork Houston roster, which meant that we could win this game, right? And here's the thing. We lost to a bunch of bad teams last season. So if we can win these games more, we'll be in better shape going into the playoffs and probably have a higher seed. It's just like we got to improve our style of play, and we see flashes of it, which gives me hope, but it's still a long ways off. So shout out Sam, $5 donation. He says, what would be your reaction if O'Shea traded for Harden? Would you feel like a championship is definitely out of reach, or would it be in reach? And I want to make this point, and I want to know what you think about this, Eric. CJ McCollum had a phenomenal game tonight. Phenomenal. 44 points, 8 assists, efficient shooting, 17 for 30 from the field. He hit 9 threes. We still barely beat a team we were much more talented than. CJ McCollum had a Harden-esque sort of game, and we still almost lost to a lottery roster, right? When healthy, the Rockets probably have a playoff roster, but this roster tonight is a lottery quality roster that we almost lost to at home, with CJ having a Harden-esque sort of performance. It's like, okay, if we bring in Harden, yeah, we might get those performances a little bit more. It might be a little bit better, but does it really fix the issues that cause us to struggle? And the issues that caused us to struggle today, if you replace CJ with Harden, those issues are still all there. And, like CJ matched Harden. Harden had more assists, but he, had more of the offense ran through him. And he was more ball dominant than CJ was in this game. Harden basically was running everything in this game. So, yeah, he had more assists, but, Harden had 44, CJ had 44. So it's like, part of the thing that gives me pause on trading for James Harden is it probably makes the team good enough to where they don't feel like they have to fix anything, but then those issues are going to bite us in the butt in the playoffs, and those issues I don't think would have changed if we had Harden in this game on our team instead of CJ.
Yeah, see, I think Harden is perfect if we're going to keep the same crappy system, because he can single-handedly run an ISO offense, and you've seen it time and time again. So, I feel like if we're not going to change our offense at all, I would be fine with trading for Harden. The problem becomes it's a lot more complicated than people make it out to be, and the trade machines are broken. They don't factor in the fact that we're hard-capped, and Houston's also hard-capped, and there's roster limits and all these different things. You can bring in other teams, but it's going to be very difficult to make a trade work, considering we'd have to give up like 2 or 3 guys and then find spots for them, or if Houston doesn't want them, like what we do and all this stuff. But anyways, just on the court, I feel like Dame and Harden together would bring us to a championship level quality, a little more so than our team now. But overall, our depth would be worsened, so I don't know if that would help, but we're not really using the depth properly anyway. So if we're not going to do that, I feel like we might as well just go all in and play iso ball if it's not going to change. But the fact still remains, I don't want to play that way.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if we're going to play that way, I'd rather have Harden than CJ. If we're going to change it up, it becomes a bigger question on whether Harden would fit better than CJ. But I don't have any confidence without a new coach that we're ever going to change it. So we might as well trade for Harden and just go for it that way if that's what we're going to do.
It's an interesting debate, man. It's a very interesting debate because, like, I have serious reservations about if we were last in the league in assists last season. We run an extremely stagnant offense, and I have serious reservations about a heavy isolation offense being able to win a championship if you don't have like a Giannis or a LeBron. Like a ISO heavy offense with 2 guards being able to win a championship. I have reservations about that, and people will point back to, oh, well, if Chris Paul never got hurt, they probably would have made the finals and could have beat that Cavs team. Like, yeah, but still, man, I'd rather just fix our style of play first and see how good this specific roster is playing a good brand of basketball, because I think it can be at least fringe contender level. I think this team can be really good. When we show flashes, it looks better than anything we ever saw last year, right, in terms of the style of play. Before you respond to that, let me thank the donations. Shout out Near012 for the $5 donation. He gave 2 $5 donations. I'll read them both off. He says, our second unit is as good as we think. They all shoot after first pass and kills the ball movement. I will touch on the second unit and their style of play in a bit. I appreciate the donation. His second donation says, and we need to trade Melo or Hood for pass first wing. We can't trade Hood or Melo for a while, so that's not even really a conversation right now. Shout out Blue Diamond Gem for the $2 donation. He says, or she, I don't know. They say, necessity is the mother of invention. We are there. That's philosophical. Don't know 100% what it means, but appreciate the $2 donation. So what's your, we'll continue on that conversation.
The only thing I'll say about the stagnant offense thing is, see, Harden is a little different than the normal ISO players in that, you did mention Giannis and LeBron, who are also good at this, but they can create ball movement and make up for a stagnant offense by drawing so much defensive attention. And it's the same thing I've said about CJ. Like, when he drives, he collapses the defense and draws attention. If he was looking to pass a little more like Harden does sometimes, I think he could be at that level, at least distributing the ball, and that would help our offense out. I'd love to see the 8 assists tonight, so I'm not knocking CJ for anything tonight, obviously. But I just think like Harden can improve our assist numbers and our ball movement just by the fact that he can break down a defense by himself. And that's what you need in the NBA, as players who can do that. And it hasn't really worked in the playoffs because other than the year he had Chris Paul, he has had talented players like Russell Westbrook, but we know his problems in the playoffs. He hasn't, Dwight Howard isn't really, he had that one run with Orlando, but other than that, he isn't like a legendary playoff performer either. Yeah. And he's not someone who's easy to get the ball and base an offense around. So he hasn't had the best like offensive weapons, in my opinion, in the playoffs. And I'm not making excuses for him, but I feel like it would be an upgrade over CJ. I can see both sides of the argument, though.
Yep. We're not going to touch on this after this conversation. I know a lot of people have been talking about this, and we had many questions in chat, so figured we would definitely touch on this. But, yeah, just coming back to just the team as is. Go ahead.
Can I mention something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Casey Holdall is reporting that Stotts said he just chose not to play Trent in the second half of this game.
We're going to have to touch on that. Do you want to touch on that now, or do you want to wait on that? Because I figured, okay, we'll go over the players and we'll get to Anthony Simons, and then we'll like talk about that compared to Gary Trent Jr. because that is pretty mind-boggling to me. I don't understand that at all. But we'll touch to that with individual players. I think. Shout out Kyle Wilson for the $5 donation. He says, "I'm so beyond done with Stotts and the PDX media / announcers that's content with mediocrity. Would you guys be down with hiring Vanderpool as head coach?" I don't even really want to talk about like head coaching replacements because it's not even like necessarily about getting rid of Stotts or anything. It's about improving the style of play, whether that's Stotts, improving the style of play, or maybe we need to get somebody else that can improve the style of play. But it's not necessarily about who is the head coach. It's about what style of basketball are we playing out there on the court. And I mean, I'm willing to give it time, but we're behind where we need to be right now. And we haven't seen enough improvement from the second preseason game till now, in my opinion. This team is talking about, we need a bunch of time, yet they haven't improved much at all with the time that they've been giving from the second preseason game to now. Maybe it'll start clicking at some point, and I'm hopeful, right? I battle with myself about like, okay, being optimistic about this, and then like, we aren't showing any improvement, but this team is talented enough to win games in the regular season playing this way. This team is talented enough to do that. And we saw that tonight, right? My concern is just when we get into the playoffs, we're not going to be able to contend unless we move the ball better, in my opinion, and have better defense. And I want to talk about the defense. When we ratcheted up the pressure during portions of this game, I thought our defense looked better than when we were dropping the big. And we still gave up some buckets, but it was like Nurkic was hedging too far away from the play and allowing Harden to split the pick and roll and get downhill. That's very fixable. Like I saw fixable mistakes with some of our pressure defense, and it still looked better than when we dropped the big. And when we dropped the big, it wasn't like we were making mistakes. They were kind of picking us apart here and there just because of the scheme. It wasn't that we weren't executing the scheme right. It was they were picking apart because it's a drop scheme. Whereas when we were pressuring, we were making more mistakes, but it looked at least just as good, if not better, during stretches. We had, and I tweeted this out about 4 minutes left in the game. I tweeted out this video where we had a phenomenal defensive possession where we didn't allow anybody to drive. Nurkic hedged on Harden. Derrick Jones recovered back. Nurkic recovered to his man in the passing lane, so Harden couldn't get it to the big. And then CJ rotated better than I've seen him rotate all season out to, I think it was Daniel House, and forced him into a really bad miss. We ended up giving up the offensive rebound, and then they scored off of that. So it didn't necessarily result in us getting a full stop, but that stretch of defense during that possession looked very, very good and was maybe our best defensive stretch of any play this entire season, over these first 2 games and over the preseason. And I see stuff like that, and it's just like, we really need to key in on that. And we really need to embrace that a little bit more and do it a little bit more, especially if a team starts picking apart our drop scheme and they go on a little 7-0 run or they hit 3 shots in a row. Change things up, throw a different look. When we have done it a little bit this season, I can tell the offense isn't necessarily ready for it. And run it more so we can fix these executional mistakes, because I still think pressuring the pick and roll, having a more aggressive defense is what is best for this team, and that kind of fits into the style play thing and some of the coaching philosophical things that I want to see going forward, whether it's from Terry Stotts or, down the road, if we end up bringing somebody different in. That's just what I want to see in general.
So Kyle Wilson had another $2 donation. He said maybe Trent told Stotts that his adjustments. That's funny. So here's my thing. I'm done this year. I'm done basing my opinions on the results of what happened. And we saw that last year where, we pressure a play and afterwards Stotts would say like, oh, see, it didn't work when like Dame fell over against Boston. Or
got tripped by a screen. Yeah.
So I'm done basing it on whether they score or not. I'm basing it on whether we did the right things and are running the right schemes against the right teams and all that kind of stuff. So if you play perfect defense, they happen to get an offensive rebound because the ball bounces a funny way or someone doesn't box out or something. That's not on Stotts. That's not his fault. They ran the defense perfectly and something happened. Even if they make a tough shot, whatever, then you could say, yeah, they made a tough shot. But far too often, I still see us doing stuff that we've done in previous years. We're not working on these new things we've talked about, and then all of a sudden it shows up at the end of the game. That makes no sense to me. Why it wasn't
exactly
happening. Like you would think if you're working on new stuff, it would show right at the beginning of the game, and then you would like gradually like go back towards what you rely on as a player, you know, and what's more comfortable for you as the game goes on. Like that's not coaching to me. It just seems like they're playing like rec ball, and then all of a sudden at the end they're like, "Oh yeah, we should try this real quick or something." Like,
yeah, I mean, dude, I was keeping track of like this is a thing you guys can do it next game if you want, but this is a fun thing I like to do in games. Keep track of how many times somebody catches the ball inside the arc, other than us throwing the ball into the post for an isolation post possession, or us throwing the ball to the elbow with Nurkic's back to the basket, right? Try and keep track of how many times we catch the ball inside the arc in the half court, or actually facing the rim, running towards the rim or whatever. It's very rare. You know, there was like a stretch, and I was keeping track. There was a stretch of like 6-7 half-court offensive possessions in a row where we had 0 times where we caught the ball when it wasn't just throwing it into the post. Like 7 possessions in a row, like that type of stuff is inexcusable for me. Like there's no reason that should be happening. That style of play can get us caught with major droughts if nobody gets hot. You know, CJ gets hot and bails us out, but that kind of goes back to your point about not focusing as much on the results as the process. And it's like, okay, if CJ doesn't get hot, we lose this game by double digits. If CJ doesn't drop 44 points, we lose this game to a team that we're far better than. So the issue with me is like, it's a lot of perimeter stuff. We're catching the ball in the perimeter. It's a lot of isolation. It's a lot of one-on-one in the post. Like, we need to move the ball more. But it's like, you have like 3 possessions in a row where Derrick Jones Jr. cuts to the rim, Dame throws him a lob, we get a dunk. You have a play on an inbounds. I don't know if it's an out timeout play, but it's just a basic action where they threw the ball to Nurk at the top of the key, and CJ went over to set a screen for Dame, and he slipped the screen and was wide open because Dame brings so much attention to himself that you can slip those screens and get buckets. CJ got a dunk out of it. You had another play, it was like similar, but the roles were kind of reversed, and Dame cut off that action and got a completely wide open layup. Like, that was like 3 possessions in a very short stretch. I think the dunk might have been in overtime instead of regulation, so maybe it was a little bit more stretched out, but like I see these 3 possessions and it's just like, why can't we try that more? If they guard it well, fine, right? If they shut that down and then the shot clock gets to 8 and we can't get buckets off that type of stuff, then you can go throw it into the post and let Melo go one-on-one and try and get a bucket. Like, there's no reason we should be doing that at the start of possessions, especially when Melo is cold, especially when he's like 1 for 5, 1 for 6. There's no reason we should be doing that. We can resort to that late in possessions. We shouldn't be going 3 possessions in a row where we dribble the ball down the court and just throw it into Kanter in the post or throw it into Melo in the post.
The only exception I'd say to that is, so after our first 2 possessions, which I want to talk about in a second, but after that, we went to Nurk like 3 times in a row, and he clearly had a size advantage on Wood and could back him down. And I like that. I like exploiting a mismatch like that, purposely doing it. But just giving someone touches just to give them touches, I don't think is correct. But the first 2 possessions of the game, we actually had a new play. This is what makes me mad about it. So they had it was basically, so the first play, like Covington came up the middle of the key and caught the ball at the top of the 3-point line, right at the center. And second play, it was the same thing, only it was Derrick Jones instead of Covington. But you know what it was?
What?
It was just one like little differentiation or variation of the weave play. So we just made one extra move and then just made all our passes going backwards towards away from the hoop, running the weave play off of it versus like actually running some action towards the basket. And this is what's driving me crazy. Very little of our offensive sets or plays are designed to get players going towards the basket when they catch the ball, going towards the basket off a screen. It's always designed around looping around or going around the three-point line or something like that, or slipping a pick and roll. Almost all of our cuts where we do it is more just like a little slip cut to Nurkic in the high post, and he dumps it off to a cutter on the backside. But that's not design. That's just Derrick Jones Jr. instinctively cutting, in my opinion. Versus
which we need more of. But
right.
It needs to be it needs to be encouraged from the coaching staff. Like those types of cuts. I'd rather have Derrick Jones Jr. cutting like that, almost hitting his head on the rim and throwing down a dunk, than him spotting up in the corner. His shot looks improved this season, but I want to see him cut. I think Synergy had him rated as the number one cutter in the entire NBA last season. And like through the first 3 quarters of this game, how many times did you notice him cut when he was in the game? Like, I don't know if there was one play where it was like, oh, Derrick Jones Jr. is cutting, or one set design where it's like, okay, we're setting a screen for Derrick Jones Jr. to cut to the rim or catch a backdoor lob or that type of stuff. And it's like, why aren't we utilizing this guy's athleticism and cutting ability? And that just kind of goes back to, our offense is too much isolation, and then the sets we do run is like the 3-man weave where everybody's running around the perimeter and like tossing it backwards to each other 30 feet away from the rim, running a weave, and then we go into a pick and roll, which we could do in the first place anyway, stuff like that. Or it's, we pass the ball to Dame and CJ like runs away from the pass and gets a flare screen around the perimeter. It's too much like perimeter stuff. Like we need to utilize back screens, we need to utilize cutters, we need to get guys moving towards the hoop, and that goes back to what I said is, how many times do you see a guy catch the ball running towards the hoop, or catch the ball inside the arc where it's not a post up, or just catching the ball at the elbow? That type of stuff is just a little bit too rare. And then we see it, and we have our best stretch of shot selection during down the stretch. You know what I mean? And that type of stuff is like, okay, we need to do more of that. And if this team does more of it, it will be more consistent offensively, and it won't have to rely on like CJ McCollum dropping 44 points on 17 for 30 shooting to win a game against an inferior team by 2 points. So that's what it comes down to for me. Let's just talk about the Gary Trent Jr. thing now. So Casey Holdall said that Stotts only wanted to play 9 guys in the second half, and it came down to Simons versus Trent, and he went with Simons. I don't hate that, because Simons actually played really good defense this game. And I had it on the banner. He had, I think, 2 blocks. He blocked Christian Wood, man. He blocked Christian Wood. It was impressive. He had a steal. He had a jump ball that he caused. He had some great defense possessions, knocked down a couple threes. So, like, you know what? Gary Trent Jr. is a better player, but, like, I kind of get going, I kind of get wanting to play Anthony the second half. What I don't get is why that only applies to the young guy instead of veterans. That never applies to veterans. You play Melo a ton. Again, you play, like, Melo has had a really bad first half, and he plays the same amount of minutes the second half. I don't know how many minutes he played. I'll try and pull it up. Maybe somebody in chat can let me know how many minutes Melo played. But it's like that applies to a guy like Gary Trent Jr. versus Anthony Simons, but it doesn't apply to Kanter. It doesn't apply to Melo no matter how bad he is. It doesn't apply to Rodney Hood even, because Rodney Hood didn't really do anything this game. I'll give him... Rodney Hood had really good defense, so I understand, wanting to play him as well, but it's just like, apply that to everybody. We're so deep that if somebody has a good first half, play them in the second half. Or if, you're going up against Christian Wood, play Giles against him instead of Kanter, if we need a fleet-footed big. So that type of stuff is like, okay, I'm not really going to harp on it too much because Simons was playing well, but why is it Gary Trent Jr. the one losing out compared to a guy that literally shot 2 for 9 this game and did not play good defense with Melo? And it comes back to, apparently we, got to protect Melo's legacy over, like, we got to prioritize that over the team potentially being better, which I don't like whatsoever. I don't like that whatsoever. If we really needed to say that to bring him back, then I would have rather us just let him walk and go sign Ersan Ilyasova on the minimum. I'm a guy who can defend decently and knock down some threes. Like, and you could probably, like, Ersan Ilyasova is in the league, so you wouldn't have to give him a promise, and he could be benched for a player that's playing better. That's kind of my issue with, like, the rotations is... Like, a guy like Gary Trent Jr., he'll be quick to be like, okay, well, you're not playing the second half, despite you being phenomenal for us in the bubble last season. And, he struggled a little bit in game 1, but he's a really good player. But he's the one who loses out because he's the youngest. That's what I have an issue with. Shout out, I'll get your response on that. Shout out to Joshua Lugo for becoming an all-star member. Appreciate it. You guys can become a member if you click join below. I will have more information and some updated perks here in the next couple of days for that. Shout out Ben Hewitt for the $2 Australian, what's Australian currency called?
I don't know. You tell us, Benny. Come on.
Yeah.
Benny? How you doing, man?
He says, why was this game so close? I mean, that's kind of what we're getting into right now. But yeah, so with the rotations, man, like what's your thoughts on that?
So here's my thing. One is Simons missed most of the preseason, or missed all the preseason, right? I don't think he played in preseason.
He played the first game, and then he had that hamstring and didn't play the second half of the first game.
He played the first half of the first game, yeah. And then he missed most of the practices too, because he's been dealing with that hamstring. So I don't understand. Yes, he had a good first half, a good run. It was nice to see him on the floor. I was surprised he got minutes tonight. I wasn't expecting to see him play, but I'm also kind of surprised that he even played in this game at the expense of Gary Trent, considering that Trent hasn't really, I mean, yeah, he didn't shoot the ball well in the first game, but I mean, he hasn't done anything, in my opinion, to warrant taking him out of the rotation or not playing him. But yeah, so I'm a little surprised on that. The other thing, so we could talk about the Melo and Kanter thing all we want. It doesn't make any sense to me why in the second half of this game, after seeing what it did in the first half, that you would not play Giles over Kanter. And that's nothing against Kanter. Once again, he had a fine game. He had like 10 points and 9 rebounds or something like that. Was solid on the boards again. But this is not a good matchup for him. And it's perfect for Giles. Like this type of team playing against like an athletic team that's small, Giles could have a field day. He could have created some offense. He's one of those guys, like we talked about earlier, that can create motion and less stagnation in offense just because he can break down a defense and break down his guy. And I would have liked to seen him get a chance to play in this game tonight. So I was surprised they went back to the Melo Kanter thing. Melo, I don't have any problem with him getting a shot in games. Like if he's having a bad game, I'm fine with him not getting minutes down the stretch. If he's having a good game, I wouldn't mind seeing him out there as well in the closing minutes. Like you tweeted out earlier, I do want to get him more involved as a three-point shooter first before we go to him in the post. But as far as rotations go, I'm also perplexed. Houston has the ball. It worked out for us once again, but this is another one of those results versus process thing. So we have the team now. We don't have to play Dame and CJ on defensive possessions with 8 seconds left in the game. Like, we have the guys. Why not put in all our defensive specialists in the game and close out games with defensive lineups when we need stops, or we're up 5 with 30 seconds left? Why not put, knowing that we're going to call a timeout if we get the ball or they score, why not put a defensive lineup in the game and try to win the game on the defensive end versus having to outscore a team? And that's what's going to bother me too on the rotations when you see like we single guarded like Harden with CJ on one of the last possessions and he hits a step back 3 on him. And it's not necessarily CJ's fault, but like, why don't we have a better defender on there if we're not going to double team him? It's just stuff like that. The rotations, we have the roster now to not have to. Last year we had to play Dame, CJ, Melo, no matter what the situation was, because the alternative was Mario Hezonja or whatever. But like now we have the lineup, so we can put in like Melo and Kanter when we need an offensive spark. We can put in Hood and Gary Trent Jr. and stuff when we need defensive sparks and stuff. Like, so there's going to be something to watch all year for me is if Stotts takes advantage of his personnel versus just like playing the starters or whatever at this point. It's the end of the game. I'm going to have my 5 starters in there. This is the, whatever. This is my second unit. So I'm always going to have Kanter and Melo in there together. I'm not going to play Giles unless it like something happens with Kanter or something that's just going to drive me crazy. But that's something I'm going to be watching for.
Yep. I'm going to post a new Discord link. That Discord just popped up over your face for a second. My second monitor won't connect right now, so I'm not able to have Eric on my second monitor. I have to have him on my main screen, so stuff might pop over him now and then. But if you want to join our Discord server, let me make sure it's the right one. If you want to join our Discord server, I will post a link in the comments section because the links sometimes expire, and apparently I don't know my hotkeys. There we go. Yeah, if you want to join our Discord, it's right there. Somebody asked about previewing like how we look against the Lakers. We will focus on that on Monday. We will preview the upcoming couple of games on Monday live at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. That'll be over on our second streaming channel. We have this channel where we do our post-game streams as well as our videos, and then Mondays and Thursdays we stream over on our second channel at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. That's Blazers Uprise Live. I will post the link in the chat for you guys. The link is also in the description of this video if you want to come see that. Blazers Uprise Live, we pick the games, we pick against the spread for the upcoming games that day, and then we preview a lot of Blazer stuff, and we do touch on other NBA stories and whatnot. So yeah, definitely go subscribe if you haven't subscribed to that. Other than that, is there any team-based things left that you really want to go in depth on?
No, we'll talk about.
Well, you start laughing.
We'll talk about this later.
Okay.
That's the thing I told you to stay tuned for the post-game show to talk about.
Yeah, I have no idea what Eric is talking about. So let's jump into talking about individual players. I will pull up their banners here once we get to them. Let me find it. There we go. Let's talk about CJ McCollum first because he had the best game out of any Blazer. He dropped 44 points, 8 assists, 17 for 30 from the field, and 9 for 16 from the three-point line. CJ absolutely balled out today, and it's funny, man. It's funny how hot and cold the Blazers fan base is with CJ McCollum. Oh my goodness, he doesn't pass, he doesn't shoot well enough, and then he has a game like this, and they love him. You know, in next game, they'll probably hate him again. But, like, here's the thing. When Dame is struggling and not efficient, we need that second guy that can create his own shot like this. For everybody saying, oh, well, let's just get rid of CJ McCollum just for anything and then start Gary Trent Jr. We lose this game by double digits if Gary Trent Jr. starts because Gary Trent Jr. just doesn't have the playmaking or shot creation ability that CJ McCollum has. And when Dame is cold, we really don't have another player on this team that can consistently create their own shot from the perimeter. And you look at the way we run things is we're a super ISO heavy team. So we need guys that can score in isolation and create their own stuff from the perimeter. You know, if you get rid of CJ and start Gary Trent Jr., this team doesn't pass the ball more. This team is not going to move more. It's not a CJ problem. When CJ's out of the game, the bench lineup is in, it's even worse. So it's not, CJ McCollum causing those issues. So that's the thing. It's like in an isolation-heavy offense, man, without CJ McCollum in tonight's game, this team is not getting to maybe even 110 points. Like, this team is getting probably blown out. So that's the thing. Is like, it puts a lot more pressure on Dame, not having the second guy that can step up like this, not having another, like, at least fringe all-star caliber player that can create their own shot and take over the offense when the offense is struggling. That's been my point for years. And sometimes CJ will struggle and have bad games where he doesn't defend well, where he doesn't shoot well, where he doesn't make the right passes. But we've seen him time and time again step up when Dame is struggling. Like, Dame had 32 points, but it wasn't efficient. We'll talk about him in a sec. We've seen time and time again when Dame doesn't really have it going, CJ McCollum step up and get the Blazers wins because he's able to have games like this. We saw it. I mean, I reference it a lot, but we don't make the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago if we don't have CJ McCollum step up in Game 7 in Denver, where our offense is just an absolute train wreck. He stepped up and dropped 37 points. We didn't even reach 100. So we dropped like 36 of our 98 points or however many points we scored that game. And he was the reason. Dame didn't really have it going that game. And he stepped up and put the team on his back in a playoff game to get us to a Western Conference Finals. You see it again tonight. Steps up, brings this team back in the third quarter, and has a phenomenal effort. He hits the game-winning three with 6.5 seconds left on a kick-out from Dame. And he won us this game tonight. He absolutely won us this game tonight. Without Without CJ dropping 44 points, we lose this game. Without CJ putting the team on this back, we lose this game. Without CJ on the roster, because a lot of people want to trade him for just crap pieces, without CJ, we lose this game by 20 points tonight. So CJ had a great game, and this is exactly why I'm not on board the trade CJ for anything you can get train. I've never been on that board. I can't even talk right now. I've never been on board that train, and this is just another example as to why.
And also the train of, trade him for a bunch of pieces to fill a bunch of spots. Like, you need someone who can take over games like this. Guy like Melo can do it for a few minutes, but he's nowhere. He's way past his prime and can only do it for stretches now. So you need a guy who can create like this. But the problem is, I had people during this game tell me that CJ was a bum and trash and that he's off to a horrible start this season. I was like, what are you talking about? We're in the second game and he's having an amazing game in the second game. Yeah. But it's just so weird with CJ.
Yeah,
I don't get it at all. But
the whole fan base, the way they act towards him is just mind-boggling.
See, the thing is, we were getting terrible shots. Most of his shots were like difficult, hard shots to make, especially some of those like step back threes. Which, if he can start hitting those a little more consistently, it'd be nice. He said he was working on his range a little bit, but like our offense was not good. Like we were just like stagnant, not moving the ball. And if we're going to play like that, we have to have guys like CJ on the team who can create shots. And
I tweeted this out. I said, the only one who should be getting credit for CJ hitting these contested threes is CJ. This isn't the system freeing him up. This is CJ being a talented scorer who can get extremely hot. That's it. This is what you think it's about. Because here's the thing. CJ will step up and hit all these shots, and people will say, see, look, Stas' an offensive genius. Look at what CJ's doing right now. Bro, CJ was literally just going one-on-one and hitting insanely difficult shots and got extremely hot. That has nothing to do with the system. That's nothing to do with, the coaching, freeing him up for these shots, right? I'll give the coaching more credit for, look at that backdoor cut. Or look at CJ slipping the screen out of the timeout, where he goes to set a screen for Dame and then he slips and gets a dunk. Like, that type of basketball is like a style play thing. And it's what we ran got CJ a really great shot. So I can give credit for that. But CJ going one-on-one, hitting a bunch of contested threes, I can coach that. I can say, okay, CJ, just put the team on your back, man. Just go create some shots and hit some hopefully you hit some threes for us. Because that's basically what it was. It's awesome. It's awesome, and that's exactly why we need a second guy that can get hot like that. But it's just CJ getting hot and being a super talented scorer. That's all it is. And I feel like the credit gets too often put onto other things, and especially the coaching and the system, when it's just, maybe you can give Stas a little bit credit for giving the players that freedom, but normally when you have super talented scorers like this, they're going to get freedom from most coaches in the NBA. So I don't know. It's just that was, I felt like I needed to tweet that early on in CJ's hot run there.
So Parlandia says, Tori's so wrong on CJ going off. In my opinion, most coaches wouldn't allow that. So here's where you're wrong, Portlandia. The fact is that's been our offense for 7 or 8 years. Like, it's basically been ISO, post-ups, of that kind of offense. So it's not a matter of, Stotts is finally letting these guys, like, explore what they do and ISO and be themselves and create shots and stuff like that. They've done it the last, CJ in particular, for 5 years now. We know it doesn't work necessarily every time in the playoffs against elite defenses. It can work against lesser defenses, and he can get hot for a game and win us a game, yes. But to win a title, we need a more structured offense than just having someone make crazy shots for a whole half and win us a game.
Yeah. So shout out Peter Hollins for becoming a superstar member. As I said, in the next couple of days, I will have an update about channel memberships as we get rolling on into the season, because there's a couple things I want to change in terms of the perk. Just gotta make sure I disclaim that. Appreciate the support, Peter.
What's up, Peter?
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of blanked on what you said. So just keep going.
just like creating shots versus.
Yeah. Bro, a lot of coaches in the NBA let their star players create shots. And here's the thing: if we move the ball a little bit better and like ran a little better offensive system, maybe CJ is getting those shots on catch and shoot instead of having to pull up for contested threes, and he probably does the same thing and takes better shots because the coach is getting him better shots through running better sets for him. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is it doesn't have to be hero ball for somebody to go off. So saying like other coaches wouldn't let him go off, I feel like other coaches might make it a little bit easier for him to go off by getting him better shots. But if somebody's that hot, most coaches in the NBA let their players, like if they're that hot and that offensively talented, most coaches will let him do that. So just an interesting. I mean, I know some people will disagree with that and want to give Stotts credit every time CJ goes isolation and goes hot, but
here's the problem. So last game or whatever, I forgot what he shot from the field, but if he goes 10 for 30 instead of 17 for 30 with 4 threes, then everyone's like, CJ sucks, he's trash, he's shooting all these shots, and so you can't have it both ways, right? Stotts allows him to have the bad games too and keep shooting and shoot us out of games sometimes as well. So like, I don't know. He's a good player. He can get hot like this. We needed every point he had tonight, which is really sad. And barely squeaked out a victory, but CJ was phenomenal on the offensive end tonight, at least.
Yep. So let's talk about the defense a little bit before and we're already talking about individual players, but actually, I'll wait until we get to Rocco and Derrick Jones Jr. because there's some defensive things from this game. We've already touched on the defense a little bit, but I want to expand on it, but most specifically in regards to those two players. Let's talk about Dame for a second. Dame did not have an efficient shooting night tonight. He shot 11 for 28 from the field. That's not great. 5 for 13 from the three-point line isn't bad per se, but he did drop 9 assists and he did have some big plays, so it wasn't a terrible game by Dame. You just definitely want to see that efficiency be a little bit better, but it's kind of a game from Dame. He had a very poor game one, was more aggressive this game. Everybody was saying, he needs to be more aggressive. Maybe this is a byproduct of it, if he doesn't have a rhythm but is more aggressive, you might have some shooting nights like this, but he looked a little better today. He doesn't really have, I don't know, it's early on in the season. He doesn't seem to have quite the same burst he did last season off the dribble in terms of like quickness, and I think that's just ramping up into the season and whatnot, and I don't know, and it's not like he's not quick or anything. It just seems like he had that little extra spark last season where now some guys that he would have blown by last season, he's having a little bit more trouble getting by them. He hasn't really gotten the benefit of the whistle, so maybe it's just guys being more physical with him, but I feel like he doesn't. He hasn't gotten hot from 3 yet. His three-point shot has been short, which could be, he doesn't have quite as much leg in his shot. Your power comes from your legs when shooting the 3-ball, and he's missing a lot of threes short. And then, he's not getting into the paint as effectively as he was last season. That's just a little difference. And the thing is, next game, he could have that spark and be on fire from 3. I just wonder if, his legs aren't quite fully there yet.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on that kind of stuff. Definitely needs to shoot the ball better. He actually took a surprising amount of mid-range shots in this game, like 3 or 4 of those, which is rare for him. But he's usually pretty efficient from there. When he does shoot them, he just doesn't shoot a lot of them.
I feel like he probably missed every one of those short, because he was short on those mid-range especially, those like little side steps he does, off-balance mid-range jumpers.
Yeah. I think this is a decent point by Block Boy. He's saying that it could be because players aren't respecting Derrick Jones Jr. And maybe to some extent Robert Covington as much as they did Hood and Melo last year on the three-point line. So that is allowing him a little less space to operate when he does drive. Also, Nurkic isn't anywhere near as good as he was pre-injury either. So until he becomes a much more legitimate finisher inside, I think he'll continue to get guys to come off of him and not respect him as the roll man as much. And then, for all Whiteside's faults, he was a tremendous finisher. I think he shot over 60% from the field last year. So if you threw it to him near the basket, he was most likely going to score, which is different than the dynamics of this team where they're not quite as good inside finishing wise. So that could play a factor as well. But this is where the Melo thing becomes interesting to me, because I've always said that his biggest strength, in my opinion, was that defenses still respect him like he's the old Melo, and that the Blazers need to do a better job of taking advantage of that. And so, like, you start to wonder if last year maybe his high efficiency was because he was playing with such talented. I mean, you had CJ, who we already talked about, is a great ISO scorer. Melo is one of the great scorers of all time in this league. So maybe this is going back to the rotations as well. Maybe we need to mix up some of the rotations and maybe not have, because like Melo, I hate to keep bringing this up, but Melo and Kanter playing together doesn't seem to be working defensively, and it's not going great offensively either. So what's the point of playing a lineup like that with the second units? Maybe we need to mix it up a little more and have a more balanced lineup between our first lineup and our second lineup, instead of having our two solid defensive wing players in the first lineup and our two offensive players in the second unit. I don't know.
I disagree on it being a Derrick Jones Jr. and Robert Covington thing affecting his efficiency. I feel like the shots he got tonight were the shots he got last year in an average game. Those mid-range shots, like, he cashes them in a little bit more often. It's like if he makes an extra 3 and a couple extra 2-point shots, like 2 more 2-point shots and another 3, he's 6 for 13 from the 3-point line. That's efficient. He's 14 for 28 from the field. That's efficient. It's not like he was like super inefficient. And here's the thing. I feel like as a spot-up shooter, teams are respecting Covington as much as they're respecting Melo. That guy has yet to get a clean catch-and-shoot 3. And I feel like it's because they're respecting him. Defenders respect him. Because if not, he should be getting much more open catch and shoot threes. So maybe it's just like we're not making the right pass or whatever. He's not relocating along the 3-point line to a spot where somebody can deliver him the ball. But dude, that guy has not gotten one open catch and shoot 3. And I'll talk about Covington in a second. He hasn't gotten one. And with a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., like, his guy is sagging off him. That's just where Derrick Jones Jr. needs to cut. I'd rather have a guy that cuts and finishes like well. Like, we should be able to make defenders pay for leaving Derrick Jones Jr. or not paying attention to Derrick Jones Jr. because he's such a great cutter and lob threat. Perfect example is that backdoor cut he had because his defender wasn't paying attention to him, and he cuts backdoor and gets a dunk. Like, we gotta make defenders pay for that, and even if he's not hitting threes, like, you can make defenders pay for that by a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. cutting or being a lob threat. So I don't think like he's getting tougher shots necessarily. The paint is a little bit more packed on the pick and roll, but that's where we just need to get better in terms of cutting properly and moving the ball properly and exploiting that if teams do defend us that way.
Yeah, I can't argue with that either. But if he is just going to spot up and not cut, I do think there is some merit to that. But yeah, overall. It'll take a much bigger sample size than 2 games, I think, to know for sure either way. But I don't know. I'm going to harp on this too. Like, I don't understand if CJ's having a good quarter or whatever, why isn't he the guy that gets to stay when the bench unit starts to come in, and he brings Dame out and just let him rest a couple extra minutes and then bring him back a little fresher, and maybe he'll go on a run in the fourth quarter versus like a night tonight. Like, he did leave CJ in like a minute or 2 longer than he normally did, or that he did in the first half. But like, why not just leave CJ out there and bring Dame out, and then Dame can come back fresh and play with the second unit every once in a while? Why does it always have to be Dame stays in till the end of the third quarter and the end of the first quarter, and then subs out and then sits for a few minutes and comes back? Like, why can't they reverse roles sometimes and see if Dame can get the second unit jump started and CJ can keep his hotness going with the first unit? I don't know.
Especially if you're just going to run ISO ball with the second unit. Like, if you're just going to run ISO ball with the second unit, keep the guy who's hot in and just let him run the ISO ball instead of, okay, we're going to take him out. Dame isn't hot, so he's not going to be, like, hunting his own shot as much. And then we start throwing it into Carmelo, who's, like, 1 for 6. I don't understand that. Like, yeah, I agree with you. Keep CJ in if you're just going to run iso ball with the second unit. Keep CJ in when he's hot and ride out that hot streak a little bit longer, and then sub Dame back a little bit earlier. Maybe get CJ a minute or two longer rest in the fourth quarter than he would normally get, like sub him in a minute or two later. Since you played him more during the third quarter, and then you sub Dame back in, and Dame can be fresh. And if you sub Dame back in earlier, then he has he's fresh. He gets a little bit more time going up against a bench lineup, which should be hypothetically easier for him to get going against than a starting lineup and do things that way. I 100% agree with that.
The other thing I was thinking about a lot during the game, I don't know if this is affecting Damian as much as I think this is a factor with guys like Nurk. The lack of a crowd and not getting like pumped up when you hit a three or something. It's just kind of like, yeah, I hit a three, and it's good. Like your team's up and cheering and stuff like that, but not like you don't have the Rose Garden going crazy or whatever, and you don't have people like cheering for Nurkic, so he's has a little more energy, stuff like that. So a little bit of that. I'm not saying it's a huge factor, but that just might be a tiny bit of it as well.
Yeah, maybe for Nurkic, but not for Dame, dude. Dame was on fire in the bubble, and they didn't have any fans there either. So
that's true, but he was also like
there.
Pretty motivated to get the team to the playoffs, and so he's pretty locked in. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so let's talk about Nurkic a little bit. I do want to touch on him. Let me pull it up here. There we go. So Nurkic had 12 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. He passed the ball well today, and he was 5 for 11 from the field. I would like to see him be a little bit more efficient. He did shoot 2 threes, missed them both, so he's 5 for 9 inside the arc, which is solid efficiency. He was 2 for 4 from the free throw line and missed 2 late free throws in, I think, that was regulation that could have sealed the game in regulation. Kind of disappointing to see him miss both those free throws, but he didn't have a bad game, I don't think. His defense is still not quite where it was pre-injury levels, and he's going to need a little bit more time to get back there, and he needs to be in a little better shape, and I think that'll help in that regard. But this is what I said at the start of the season. I want to see them fully utilize his playmaking, because my favorite offensive possessions, and I feel like our best offensive possessions utilized Nurkic making a pass. You had a play in the first half where Damian Lillard inbounded the ball from the baseline, threw the ball into Nurk, and then Dame set up a backdoor cut for a lay-in, and Nurkic delivered the pass to him. You saw down the stretch, Nurkic deliver passes to CJ and Dame, which got CJ a wide-open dunk. It got Dame a pretty wide-open lay-in. We need to fully utilize his playmaking, because our best offensive sets where we get good shots utilizes Nurkic as a playmaker. And I feel like when we're moving best off the ball, when we're cutting most off the ball, is utilizing Nurkic as a playmaker at the top, making passes to Derrick Jones Jr., making passes to Dame. Nurkic had a lob pass to Derrick Jones Jr., I think, I forget which half it was in, but it was either in the second or third quarter. A lob pass to Derrick Jones Jr., and Derrick Jones Jr. didn't complete the dunk because Nurkic underthrew it and we didn't get a bucket. But if Nurkic, gets a little bit of chemistry and hits that lob pass, I'm not sure if you remember which play I'm talking about, but then that's a dunk. Stuff like that is what we need. So we need to fully utilize his playmaking. He should at least be a 5 assists per game guy, in my opinion. He's too good of a passer from that spot. We have too much. We have threats off the ball with Dame and CJ as a cutter. Those guys draw a lot of attention. Then you got Derrick Jones Jr. as an elite cutter and lob threat, and then you got Robert Covington, who can catch and shoot threes. He hasn't really gotten many clean looks in that regard yet. Like, that's how I want our offense ran when, like, CJ and Dame are cold and don't have it going one-on-one or through the pick and roll. That's what I want us to rely on, because we can get easy buckets. We got Dame a couple really easy buckets that way. We got CJ a wide open dunk when CJ was hot. CJ was on fire, so he had a ton of defensive attention. He still got a wide open dunk because we were utilizing Nurkic like that. I want to see Nurkic utilized like that more often. This should be a normal game for him, playmaking wise. I would like to see him finish a little better and defend a little better, but I think with time he will get back to that point, and he should be getting 5-6 assists a game. In my opinion, we should be running the offense through him like we did for spurts tonight.
You know what? I hate the times where he gets the ball at the top of the key and he's just like standing there waiting for someone to do something. Like no one
Yep.
does anything, and so he has to just wait for a guard to come back and grab the ball again. That drives me crazy. Like I wish there was more action. Especially that I want to see him run that one play again. They could run this with pretty much anyone, but they ran it with Dame and Melo, where Dame goes and sets a pick for Melo in the corner. Melo curls off towards the basket, so he's either in front of his guy and you can run and he's got like the advantage going to the hoop like we talked about earlier, or the two guys go with him or sag off a Dame and Dame pops out and is open for a three. So like it's such a simple little thing that they could do, but they don't do it very often. It drives me crazy.
And here's the thing, even if you don't get a bucket off of that, like Dame popping for three with CJ like slipping the screen, cutting through, if they defend that well, Dame has the ball with the side of the floor clear and the defense isn't set up. Like, the defense is, like somebody's following CJ through, running away from the play. The other defenders are kind of off ball. If you have some movement on the other side of the floor, they might not be perfectly set up. And that sets up Dame with a better one-on-one opportunity than if he just dribbles the ball up the court and attacks a set defense that's already set because you don't have any motion beforehand. And that goes back to my point of we should be trying to cut more, run more off the ball, utilizes Nurkic's playmaking, and then if they defend that, and there's 8 on the shot clock and we need something to happen, get the ball to somebody and have them go one-on-one and create, and because that point is like, okay, now you have to make something happen. But the thing is, if you run that motion beforehand, it could actually create a better one-on-one opportunity with 8 on the shot clock than if you just do it immediately.
And if Melo is the guy who's cutting towards the hoop and there's like 8 seconds left, like you said, then if he can't get the ball to him on the pass, you just establish his position in the post, you dump it down to him, and he can maybe make something happen with a few seconds left on the shot clock. Then that's totally fine. And that's what we've been begging for is we bring up his name so much because it's so easy to show the differences in the possessions and what you could do with him offensively versus what we do on the court. So I know he's not like playing heavy minutes yet, but like it's just easy to show the differences in the offense or what it could be with him. But I want to say something about Nurkic real quick. I'll say the same thing I said when Dame missed those 2 free throws in the bubble. I think it was against Philly or the Clippers?
The Clippers. Remember,
Clippers.
You had Paul George, or you had Beverly
game,
clowning him on the bench.
Yeah. So we shouldn't have to rely on Nurkic making 2 free throws in this game to win the game. That's not on him, and he's doing something weird with the ball. He's like kind of, I don't know what he's doing, but like it looked really clunky on an earlier free throw in the game, and I noticed that, and I was kind of dreading him shooting those free throws. But this game should not have come down to 2 free throws, just like the Dame one, and it just drives me crazy that people like base the whole game on whether or not he makes a free throw or something, and says he's horrible because he missed 2 free throws or whatever. Like, it's not on him. Like, we wouldn't have lost the game because of him. I mean, technically, yes, he should have made the free throws or whatever, but like, it shouldn't have come down to Nurk needing to make 2 free throws at the end of this game.
Yep, 100% agree on that. Let's touch on. Let me see who we got next here. Let's talk about Robert Covington. All right, he was he scoreless? Or I think he had 1 point off a free throw in the first game. Finally scored from the field. He had 9 points, 8 rebounds, 3 for 7 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3. And I do want to talk about his defense, and it'll segue into the next player we'll talk about. So let's touch on his offense first before we get to that. Dude, he has not had one good, clean catch and shoot look at all. The entirety of the first 2 games. He's had very contested catch and shoot looks. And you know what's crazy to me is you have people say, oh, he's overrated. He's not going to be a guy that's going to come and be like CJ McCollum breaking down guys off the dribble, right? He's a catch and shoot guy. If he was getting clean catch and shoot looks, he would be shooting better than 1 for 4. He'd be 3 for 7 from 3 or something like that. But he hasn't been getting clean looks. But what's funny to me is people hated on Al-Farouq Aminu because, oh, well, he shoots 35% from 3, but defenses don't guard him out there, so it ruins our offense. And from what I've seen, defenses are guarding Covington at the 3-point line, from what I've seen. Maybe I need to pay more attention. Maybe I'm missing something. But if they're not, he should be getting more catch and shoot looks. So conventional wisdom would say, okay, he can't get a clean catch and shoot look with Dame and CJ and Nurkic alongside him. Defenses are guarding him out at the three-point line, respecting that shot and not completely leaving him. So for all the people that said, it doesn't matter, Al-Farouq Aminu shot 43% from three on over 3 3-point makes a game in the Pelican series, he's still at fault because defenses don't guard him and just shut down Dame. If you say Aminu's shooting isn't good because defenses don't respect him, then you have to respect the fact that defenses respect Covington even in a game where he's 1 for 4 from 3. You know what I mean? Like, otherwise, it contradicts itself. Defenses respect Covington as a shooter. He hasn't gotten clean catch and shoot looks yet, but he's a guy that's not going to go force his own shot, not going to take bad shots. Like, I love that. People underrate that aspect of the game. You know, you have guys on this team that take some very questionable shots, and he's not one of them. He takes the right shots. He's a catch and shoot 3-point shooter primarily. That's what he does offensively, and he hasn't gotten clean looks that way. So to say he's overrated because he's not, scoring, he only has 9 points and was 1 for 4 from 3, that is so reactionary and so devoid of context that those type of takes just make me laugh, man. They're just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and he had a really nice play where he someone drove and he got his hand on the ball, knocked it loose. I forgot who got the ball, passed it ahead to Melo, and he streaked down and got a dunk. Mm-hmm. That was one of our only fast break buckets in the game, other than the time Derrick Jones stripped Harden, which was nice. But
and there was another play, let me add on to that. There was another play, like he wasn't shooting the best from 3. He cut baseline when Nurkic rolled, and Nurkic dropped it off to him, and he got a dunk. I want to see... dude, you know how... that wouldn't have happened without Farouq Aminu and Maurice Harkless, no matter if they were 0 for 5 from 3. Like, those guys... Harkless did a better job of it, so I shouldn't say that. But, like, guys like Al-Farouq Aminu, Evan Turner, Kent Bazemore, Mario Zone, were just too content to just sit in the corner no matter how cold they were from 3 and just spot up, and Nurkic would kick the ball to him because that's his only option because their defender's helping down, and they'd shoot an open 3 and brick it, right? But Covington had a crucial bucket where he cut, and that was part of that stretch where we were running better offense down the stretch of that game. I think it was late in the fourth quarter. He cuts, Nurkic drops a pass off to him, Covington gets a dunk, right? So that type of stuff, it's little things like that, but that type of stuff I love. If he's like hot from 3, okay, spot up, and if he helps, kick it out to Covington, open 3. But if he's 1 for 4 from 3, not shooting the best necessarily, but struggling to get open looks out there, make the right cut. And he did that on that specific play. So, like, it's stuff like that offensively that don't underrate this guy just because he's not putting up flashy scoring numbers or because he's 1 for 4 from 3. Like, defenses respect him. He can make the right cut. He doesn't force bad shots. That type of stuff is underrated in my opinion. Don't ignore those little things.
And he did have another nice cut, too, and he missed the layup. But once again, let's talk about the actual movement, not the results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, normally he's not going to miss that lane. I don't know what happened. It seemed like he jumped a little weird and didn't get off the ground. Like, something happened where he planted his feet weird, and that's why he missed that layup. Like, that's just a fluky thing, he literally had that same exact cut and dunked it later in the game. So, it's like, say you missed that layup. It's like, bro, come on, you got to make that, but I like the cut. I like the movement.
Yep.
So let's talk about his defense. He had crucial defensive plays, and he kind of struggled on the ball a little bit, and I kind of see what people are saying about, like, he's not an elite on-ball defender. Like, he's a little slow-footed in that regard, but he's also going up against James Harden.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He's a power forward going up against James Harden. Like, I don't think guys like Al-Farouq Aminu or Maurice Harkless would have fared any better, right? He had some crucial deflections. He had a deflection to seal the game late. James Harden drove very final possession of overtime, and Covington got his hand on the pass and didn't let it get out to PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker should have been in the corner spotting up for 3. I don't know why he wasn't, but still, big defensive play. He had a couple impactful defensive plays that helped swing the momentum in the third quarter where he got his hand on a dribble or on a pass and got deflections. Those type of plays are huge for this team, and in the second half especially, we saw his help side rotations. I thought they were very, very good, and it helped us play a lot better defense in the second half. So that's the thing. People notice on-ball defense the most and underrate the little things. Once again, we're talking about little things with Covington, but you see him, give up a bucket to James Harden on the ball, but then people don't see his backside rotations completely shut down an offensive possession and lead to a good defensive possession for us, and they don't really see the intangibles of somebody not guarding the ball and playing defense off the ball and rotating properly. So that's the thing with a guy like Covington. He does a lot of little things great. He's not a flashy player, but he does the intangibles extremely well, and those things help you win games. So no, he's not overrated. I feel like you can kind of tell how somebody thinks about the game of basketball based on how they're analyzing Robert Covington through these first 2 games, if they think he's overrated or underrated.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far, but we did give up a lot to get him, so I think people expect actual stats. It's the same thing we talk about with Zach Collins being not necessarily someone who fills up the stat sheet, but being impactful on the game. And Covington's like that. He definitely, just because he's not getting good looks from 3, I think we need to find a way to get him looks. But defensively, I thought it was interesting today in particular that Stotts put him on ball a lot, and that's a role that he's going to have to embrace, which it looked like he was doing tonight, but he's going to have to become a lot more comfortable on this roster doing that, because he's going to be asked to do that a lot more than he has been in the past. So whether he's good at that or if that's his best quality or not, he's going to have to become a decent on-ball defender if we're going to take the next step defensively, I think, in the long run. But, his off-ball defense tonight was really good.
Yep. Let's talk about Derrick Jones Jr., and I want to talk about the specific play. We haven't mentioned it yet. He had a steal in the backcourt against James Harden, and he went down, threw down a dunk. I feel like that was a huge momentum-shifting play. We went on a run after that, and that's the thing. It's like you look at his stat line, 6 points, 6 rebounds, 2 for 4 from the field, whatever. But having players that can make great defensive plays and turn them into buckets offensively, and having a guy that can like throw down highlight lobs, which can spark momentum, those types of plays are underrated because I feel like it can influence future plays in the game because it influences momentum. When he got that steal and that dunk, I was like, okay, this could be the play that kind of wakes them up a little bit and gets them going. And, it took CJ getting hot, and it wasn't like they necessarily, changed their style of play, but I feel like that play got them playing a little bit harder. It seemed like after that, they were defending a little harder. It kind of gave them a spark that they needed. So that play, I think, was huge in this game.
Yeah, for sure. That was definitely a momentum changer there.
Yeah, so he had a couple good defensive possessions. He did have 5 fouls. He did make mistakes here and there. But overall, I like what I see from him. You don't necessarily need a guy in that position to go get you 15 points necessarily. I would like to see more cutting from him and us involve him more off the ball and us play aggressive defense and get in transition a little bit more, because it seemed like we rarely got in transition. But overall, I think it was a solid game. He played solid defense. He had a couple big momentum plays. If you're really expecting much, like out of an average game from Derrick Jones Jr., if you're expecting much more, I feel like you're probably a little too high on him. But don't underrate, a 6.6 rebound performance where he's 2 for 4 from the field, because he played good defense, rebounded the ball decently, and came up with some big plays.
The only thing that worries me about him tonight was he took a beating on the defensive end. Some of those picks he ran into, and he got pushed a few times, committed some bad fouls, but I hope he can hold up with how skinny his frame is over the course of his season if he's continuing to take that kind of abuse and punishment on the defensive end.
But here's the thing. That's why we have a deep team, if he gets hurt, let Rodney Hood step in, and hopefully Rodney Hood continues to get his legs back under him and whatnot. But, that's why you have
only wanted to play 9 guys.
I don't get that. But, a solid performance. There's not really too much to talk about it. This is the Derrick Jones Jr. I expect, and I just want to see more cutting pretty much, and let's try and get him in transition a little bit more, and I feel like he'll be more effective if we do more of that. But otherwise, I just want to see good defense out of him. I want to see timely cuts. I want to see him finish around the rim. And that's what I want to see from Derrick Jones Jr. My expectations aren't high, but that's not a negative. I just expect him to hopefully be consistent, bring energy. He had a big hustle play that I need to touch on where he saved the possession. I don't know if we scored, but it seemed like James Harden was going to pick up the ball, and he dove, he sprinted from the baseline towards half court. It was our offensive possession. I don't remember what led to it, but he sprinted from the baseline to half court and dove on the ball and got a jump ball. And I think he lost the jump, but like plays like that, hustle plays like that is what we need, especially when the team is just kind of sleepwalking throughout a game. We need a guy that'll give them a spark by diving on the floor, by stealing the ball and getting a big dunk the other way. We need that spark, and I feel like he can be that guy that gives us that spark in games where our energy isn't quite where it needs to be.
Yeah, for sure. And you need those sparks with, like I mentioned earlier, no fans. So you got to manufacture those kind of energy plays and momentum things, and he provided a couple of those tonight, which is nice to see.
Yep, let's talk about Enes Kanter, who had 10 points, 9 rebounds, 4 for 5 from the field. His defense is not good. It's just not. His defense is not as good as it was during the Western Conference Finals run for whatever reason, I'm having a real tough time. Like because he's good offensively. He's good for us offensively. He had some big offensive rebounds and putbacks. It's just the defensive side of the ball with the bench unit especially just has me seriously concerned right now.
In his defense, I mean, the Rockets are not a good matchup for him defensively. One of the worst teams defensively in the league, probably with their personnel. And drop scheme is terrible against Utah, which they were the best 3-point shooting team in the league last year. So I wouldn't necessarily say his defense isn't as good as it was back then. I just don't think he can be used the way we need him to be used on defense against certain teams. And this is why it's going to drive me crazy if we keep going to him against teams that he doesn't match up well against, and in light of not playing Giles. Because I don't know. I feel like if Giles would have been in this game, we would have possibly blown him out, and it would have been a much different story. Even though it's funny to say, because it's not like Kanter played terrible, but like I just feel like this was not the right game to play Kanter, and I don't know why Stotts, after watching that first half, would go back to the same lineup in the second half that he went to that got destroyed in the first half. And it's really struggling to me that because you could say maybe he's just trying to solidify the rotations and make sure they're right, but then why did Simons play over Trent? So you can't have it both ways and say, oh, at this situation he did well because he made the right decision and played someone different or played based on game, but like everyone else he didn't do that with. So I'm not sure why that we're only doing that with, younger players and not like these veteran guys who should be fine if they don't play well in the first half to not get as much of a chance in the second half.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and then you got a couple trolls and shit. You got somebody saying Giles is not the answer. The man has 2 bad knees and will get owned. He looked phenomenal this preseason. He's had knee issues, but that doesn't mean he has bad knees unless he has Brandon Roy knees. I don't think he does, because he'd probably be on his way out of the league right now. He wouldn't be improving. And this preseason, he looked really, really, really good. Really spry, really active. Giles needs to get a chance in games like this. I want to see Giles play. I love what Giles can bring to the table. He brings passing. We can run things through him the same way we run things through Nurkic, which is pretty much the only time we're able to get good player movement and whatnot. And he's fleet-footed defensively and would do much better against a Christian Wood type of big than Enes Kanter. Harry Giles would do much better trapping a pick and roll or hedging on a pick and roll than an Enes Kanter, in my opinion. But I don't think Enes Kanter can't hedge. I wish we'd try it more just to see how it looks like on a decent sample size. But we just drop Enes Kanter and kind of get picked apart. So that kind of goes back to the defensive philosophy. I would like to see Enes more with like a Robert Covington and Melo more with a Nurkic. I wish we would stagger that a little bit more. I just think, having Melo play next to Kanter kind of compounds the problems. And if we're going to keep Covington next to Nurkic pretty much the entire time, then I'd rather see a little bit more Giles against bigs that Kanter might struggle with that aren't a good matchup, that he's not a good matchup against. Like a guy like a Derek Favors might be a little better matchup, a more traditional big. But a fleet-footed big that can shoot the 3 and take guys off the dribble, like a Christian Wood who had some stretches against Kanter, it's just not a great matchup, as you said. He's still a decent player, and he brings a lot to the offensive end. It's just like we need a more cohesive fit with this bench lineup. Because if you look at guys individually, we have a lot of talent on the bench, and I was worried about this, the result is less than the sum of the pieces. We have a lot of talent on that bench, but we got outplayed by a bench lineup consisting of Bruno Caboclo, Jay Sean Tate, Broderick Thomas, who was a D2 player last year, and that's just a perfect example. It's like we had a much more talented bench, but it's just not a cohesive fit. The style of play isn't where it needs to be, and Melo with Kanter is just, you can't have two poor defenders in the front court. In my opinion, you're going to get picked apart even by mediocre lineups, which is what we saw tonight. So the bench lineup in general needs to see a change. Like, I don't know if it's getting I don't know if that's cutting Kanter's minutes, because he does bring stuff offensively. We just need to improve the defense somehow, and it might be at the expense of Kanter no matter what he does offensively. But if he does play, he needs to have games like this to offset some of his defensive struggles.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to watch how that pans out over the season. But I don't know. It was glaring to me that we needed someone like Giles over Kanter in this game. I was surprised that both halves. Giles didn't even play a minute in this game. Yeah, it's just really surprising me, because, like, honestly, Giles has the skill set to be just as good, if not better, than Christian Wood. I'm not saying he will, because health obviously might factor into that. But like, that guy was way more highly recruited than Christian Wood, and he has the similar skill set. I would just love to try and see if that can translate to some games here, and see what he can do, with a legit chance of doing that, instead of just coming in for a few minutes at the end of a game in garbage time or whatever.
Yeah. Let's move on and talk about Carmelo. Block Boy said Carmelo didn't play that bad. They went on a run with Carmelo on the floor during the second half. But Carmelo was a team worst minus 16, right? Plus minus can be noisy. But the next closest player was Enes Kanter, who was a minus 8, and Gary Trent Jr., who was a minus 8. Carmelo shot 2 for 9 from the field, was 1 for 2 from the three-point line. And the 2 shots he made were the types of shots I want him taking more of. It was a spot-up 3, a spot-up catch-and-shoot 3, and it was a play where he spotted up on the three-point line, caught the ball, pump fake, defender went by him, he took one dribble in, shot a mid-range pull-up, and cashed that in. The other 7 shots I missed, I think they were all him playing that back to the basket, backing a guy down, shooting a turnaround fade. I want to see less of that. I want to see more of him spawning up on the three-point line, either catch and shoot 3, or if a defender closes out too hard, attack the closeout, one dribble pull up, or maybe get downhill towards the rim. And if he does post up, I want to see him try and get into the paint and finish, instead of settle for a lot of these turnaround fadeaways, because they have not been efficient whatsoever through these first couple of games. And they weren't efficient last year either. So we're force feeding him the ball. And, maybe that's a Stotts thing, but it almost seems like we're force-feeding him the ball to try and keep him happy on the bench, and trying to force him touches and, let him play like he is still the Carmelo Anthony of his prime, when he's clearly not. He can still be an effective player, but isolating him as much as we are is not setting him up for success. It's not setting the team up for success. He had just 2 for 9 from the field. He kind of hurt this team, but it's the way we're running offense through him is just, I don't understand. And it's kind of the part of the problem where it's a style of play issue. How many times do we just dribble the ball down the floor and pass the ball into Carmelo Anthony in the post, and he sells for a mid-range turnaround fadeaway? That's not good offense. That's not an efficient shot. That's not setting up anyone for success. I have a serious issue with kind of how we're running things through Carmelo right now.
Just for the record, he said Kanter and Melo together, not just Melo. But the run he's talking about in the second half, CJ went insane and scored a bunch of baskets.
That's nothing to do with Melo.
And then Melo and Kanter came in, and neither team scored for 3 or 4 minutes. There was 5 minutes left in the second quarter or the third quarter, and the score was 80-80 or something like that. And then it was still the same several minutes later. And yeah, defensively that might have meant, but this is the problem. Melo, Kanter, Hood, these guys are way better. they're so much more talented than anyone that Houston put on the floor tonight. So there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to stop them defensively. They weren't even playing like juggernauts or like going up against some sort of great team or anything like that. Like, so yes, they should be able to get some stops, and it's a problem when we're like happy because our second unit played defense for a couple minutes against like 4 guys that most people in here have never heard of in their life. So
yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing. We should be outscoring them with that lineup, man. Jayshawn Tate was like playing, I think, their backup 4. He played 37 minutes tonight. He was a team leading plus 14, and that was like Melo's matchup. That's kind of crazy to me. You're talking about Melo getting thoroughly outplayed by Jayshawn Tate tonight. That's not good. He got thoroughly outplayed by Jayshawn Tate. And here's the thing. I feel like if they just got him more catch and shoot looks and just playing more on the perimeter instead of just force feeding him the ball, he would play better. But it's almost like we're trying to force him touches in the low post, and it's not a recipe for success. He did not shoot well the last 3 preseason games. This is 2 regular seasons that he's not shooting well because we're force feeding him the ball down there. And if he's having shooting performances like tonight consistently, I don't care if you're the biggest Melo fan. I don't know how you keep him in the lineup if he's shooting 2 for 9, if he's shooting 1 for 7, if he's shooting 3 for 8. He got hot in the second half last game, but I feel like the types of shots he's getting is not going to be conducive for long-term success. Like, he's not going to be an efficient player getting those shots. I want better shot selection from him, and some of it is just like the philosophical thing from the coaching staff. You got to move the ball, get him catch and shoot looks, and then get him, defenders running out at him where he can take a dribble by him and shoot a pull-up, stepping into it instead of fading away, falling away, that type of stuff. And then if he gets hot off those looks and he's 3 for 3, then maybe give him a post touch, because he knocks those post touches down, those fadeaway jumpers down, if he gets going off of catch and shoot threes and simple plays like a 1 dribble pull-up. Okay, then you maybe throw him in the ball into the post once. If he knocks that down, give him another post touch. That's how you get him going. You don't just constantly just force the ball inside and then have him shoot 0 for 7 on turnaround jumpers when he's cold, but just continually force the ball to him. That's not what you do, and I have a serious problem with it because it kind of kills the rhythm with the bench unit, and just that that style of play with the bench unit, I feel like gets this bench unit playing far worse than it should be. Because we got outplayed by a terrible bench lineup from the Houston Rockets consisting of Bruno Caboclo, Jayshawn Tate, Sterling Brown, Broderick Thomas, when we had far better talent on the floor. So it's a style of play thing. We shouldn't force feed the ball like this to Melo. I have a serious problem with kind of how we're forcing him the ball in the post right now.
Well, I mean, we did the same thing with Kanter too. We were forced touching him. I just don't think we.
But he's 4 for 5.
Yeah, that's true. But like most of his baskets were on like, I think he turned the ball over a few times when he got the ball in the post. Let's see. Yeah, Kanter had 2 turnovers tonight. But like, I don't know. I'm still having a hard time blaming this on Melo for the team giving him touches. Like if he's gonna pout or whatever, if he's not getting touches, then that's on him. But like until he does or is showing that he has to have those touches to be happy, then we can address that as the problem. But in my opinion, if we're gonna like run our offense through him in the post, that's coaching thing. Like we should be talking to him and saying, hey, let's get you some spot up threes. Like we're gonna run this play. But we've never, like we saw this with Seth Curry, we saw this with Hood last year. How many games did we have where they were like shooting 50% from 3 or shooting a really well percentage or hitting a couple threes? Like Hood hit a 3 in the corner today. Mm-hmm. Do we try to get him another 3 from the corner? Like, do we do anything to like expand on that or like get them in their comfort zone? No, that it goes back to our whole offensive sets aren't designed for anything but ISO action. So I can't blame any of these players who are struggling, or if they struggle or perform well or whatever. It's just how it is for our offense. So like eventually we're gonna need games where we need Melo to like score in isolation out of the post because that's our offense, and that drives me crazy that is our offense. But I don't necessarily put that on Melo because that's a whole team thing. Like I just feel like the whole team is like that.
But it's
and
like,
I'm not just saying that because Block Boy's in here. I'm saying that because that's how I feel. Like the whole team is isolation.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if CJ plays like that, you hold CJ at least partially responsible. I feel like you give Melo a little bit too much of a pass in that regard.
But Melo plays. How many minutes did he play tonight? So like it wasn't.
20.
He wasn't even like. I mean, like, and CJ played what, 36 or something or more.
What does that have to do with it?
Like he's more in the game, so it's more noticeable. Like obviously, CJ creates more off the dribble where he can pass more. But if CJ was getting post touches and no one's cutting, like what is he supposed to do other than shoot it? And CJ had like 0 assists tonight, so like even though he doesn't pass the ball, like sometimes, I mean he had 8 assists tonight, but like CJ actually is really good at not turning the ball over, so at least he's getting shots off when he's going ISO and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like if the second unit comes out there and the first play in the second unit is to post up Melo in the post, I can't blame Melo for a post up play. That's to me, why is our coaching designed to give Melo a spot or a shot? If we're trying to get Melo a shot, why aren't we getting it to him in his most efficient ways, like you were saying, versus...
I mean, yes, I don't disagree with that, but Melo could try and get to the rim more instead of settling for mid-range turnaround fadeaways, and then if he can't get to the rim effectively or get a decent shot off it, he can pass out of it. But he doesn't. It's like almost time the ball enters to him in the post, he's just settling for a mid-range turnaround fadeaway, and you can hold him somewhat accountable for that. The team needs to utilize him more efficiently and get him going and in the flow of the game in a different way. I feel like he'd be more successful doing that, so I agree with that. But it's just like almost every time he touches the ball in the post, it's just a turnaround fadeaway is coming when like. Last game, there was a couple plays where he caught the ball in the post and actually took it to the rim and got buckets inside, got layups, got far better shots, and made them because of it. That just shows me, okay, he doesn't need to settle for mid-round turnaround fadeaways so much. He can still get downhill and still get into the paint, and he has a better chance of drawing a foul, and he has a better chance of getting a better shot, and he has a better chance of drawing the defense if he does that because he's more of a threat going towards the rim and finishing around the rim than he is fading away from 15 feet, so he might draw the defense more and then have an open pass. So it's that type of stuff that's like, I feel like you can hold Melo somewhat accountable for that. But yes, I do agree in the fact that we need to get him going other ways. We need to get him going off catch and shoot threes, one dribble pull-ups, that type of stuff, instead of just force-feeding him the ball in the post. I said that at the start of the season before we even saw a preseason game, that he gets going better if he's shooting catch and shoot threes or like catch and shoot pump fake, one dribble step in mid-range twos. He gets going that way far better than if you force-feed him the ball in the post.
And I'll continue to make this point too. Like when I'm playing basketball, especially like in pickup games, which is like the style of offense we run anyway. So like if I'm posting up, if I don't have any cutters, like then that kind of leads me to have to take a shot or like do something that I'd be much more comfortable just dumping it off to someone going down the lane for an easy lane or whatever. And there's none of that. There's not even that option when Melo has the ball. It's just watch. The first time Melo comes in the game, this happened both games, right? First play, basically, we post him up, right? Mm-hmm. And watch the other 4 guys. They just stand there and watch. They don't move. They're not doing anything, and that drives me crazy. I could say, yeah, Melo needs to pass the ball. I could say the same thing I say about CJ, but like I don't see an option for him to do anything other than take a shot. And I agree that he should try to get to the rim more because he is more effective doing that than pulling up in the mid-range. But he does try to pump fake sometimes and get the guy in his air, which he did tonight, and they didn't call the foul, and he missed the shot. But overall, I feel like everyone just ball watches when he gets the ball. It's the perfect time for someone to cut down the middle. And if someone's wide open, like yelling for the ball and he doesn't pass him, then yeah, I will kill Melo for taking a bad shot or whatever. But like I don't even see any avenues for him to pass out of the area where he gets the ball.
Yeah, so I have never ever seen you shoot a turnaround fadeaway mid-range shot out of the post.
Right.
I'm actually kind of curious what that would look like, but if you're in that position, you bully a guy. Yeah, Eric's like 6'6" and big as he's big. All right, he's a big man, but he tries to take it to the rim. I mean, Melo is like more finesse and more mid-range jumper and whatnot. But since you brought up that comparison, you try and attack and try and draw defenders. Where it's like, okay, if nobody cuts, it's like, okay, attack the rim, try and draw a defender and make a play. Or if you don't draw a defender, try and score going to the rim. He could do that a lot more than he does right now. And he could also, if he catches the ball in the post, doesn't get a good shot, even if people are standing around, instead of settling for a mid-range turnaround 2, he could kick it out to a guard and go set a screen and pop or something like that. He doesn't have to shoot all these mid-range turnaround fadeaways. And I have a problem with that. I also have a problem with the way we're trying to force feed him. So it's kind of a two-sided issue. It's just like our bench unit kind of kills momentum right now, and it's ridiculous. I was so excited for this season because it's like, oh, we're going to have a really great bench. And I look at the talent on this bench, and it's like, we have a really talented bench. We're playing like one of the worst benches in the league, and we have maybe a top 5 bench in terms of overall talent, definitely top 10, and we're playing like a bottom 5 bench in the league right now, and it's frustrating.
And we can look up efficiency stats. Obviously, like Reese mentioned, he was one of the best quarter catch and shoot 3-point shooters in the league last year. So the coaching staff can look up that same thing. They can see that he's more efficient when he takes it to the glass versus shooting a mid-range. Yet, we know he's going to shoot a mid-range when he gets the ball in most situations, right? And we still go give him post touches instead of, to me, that's saying we're just fine with him taking the mid-range, and he's being caught to just post up and do that kind of stuff versus, hey, you know what? I know you're really good at shooting the mid-range shot, and like that's been your go-to move your entire career. But... No, I'm just saying like that's what you tell him.
Yeah.
But like I know that's been your bread and butter your entire career. But let me get you an easy bucket doing this, or like try this your first possession, and because like if you do that, if you just spin baseline, take it strong to the hoop, and get a lay-in or a dunk or something your very first time you touch the ball. That's going to open up your mid-range to be you have a little bit more space because the defender's going to be worried that you're going to spin the next time. So, it's frustrating to me that we're not like, hey, like this is by the numbers, this is your least efficient shot. Why don't you try doing this the first time you get the ball and see if that opens up for a little bit better mid-range shots or something? I don't know. I feel like if we're just going to give him the ball and let him do whatever he wants, that's not on Melo. He's just being Melo. He's just doing what he's always done, right? And he's just going to continue to do that. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, like, if there's 5 on the shot clock, like, I'm cool with him shooting that mid-range turnaround fadeaway because there's 5 on the shot clock. You got to get some sort of shot up. So I'm cool with that in that scenario. It's just early in the clock. Last year, he shot 42% between 10 and 16 feet. That is not good. Because it's a 2-point shot. That is not a good clip, and you're not likely to get fouled on those. So that's not efficient basketball. He shot 38% from 16 feet to 3-point land. That's not efficient basketball. I'm cool with players shooting mid-range shots just to try and keep the defender on them, and it might open up more driving opportunities that can get you downhill. Like a guy like CJ, if he starts to attack and he gets to the mid-range area, you can't just like back off towards the rim and then contest him there, since he is a good enough mid-range shooter that you have to respect it. So guys kind of have to stay up on his hip, which makes it a little easier for CJ to blow by them and get to the rim. So like mid-range shots, I'm not like Daryl Morey and completely against it. It's just when that is the shot that you go to the majority of the time, and that's basically your offense where you don't even get an option at anything else, that's not efficient basketball. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it. He has to be a positive offensive player to justify being in the lineup, and he can be a positive offensive player, but not playing this style ball, and a big part of it is just because, for whatever reason, our coaching staff just wants to force feed him the ball. He did look very dejected on the bench. I don't know if that was because he's unhappy coming off the bench, or if he was just unhappy with the way he played, or what, but he looked very discontent on the bench during that second half. That's something I noticed, and I saw somebody point that out in chat. Kind of curious what that's about, but I don't know. Like this isn't going well so far.
So this is where it's going to come back into, if we lost this game, I think you would have a lot of people upset and complaining. You'd see a guy like Giles mad that he didn't play. I mean, he'll be mad either way, but at least we won, you know? You see Melo, like, he had a bad game, and then at least we won, so it's not like he can not only blame himself partially, but, like, you know, he's not gonna get too distraught over the decision making of not playing at the end or whatever. But I don't know, Melo. I kind of was interesting to see that he didn't go in the game when we had, you know, 2 opportunities with last shot moments. You would think that those would be the perfect times for him to play. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting that we stuck with our starting lineup versus having a guy like Melo in the game. Yeah. But overall, it's going to be a theme of this season. If when you have depth, you have to use it properly. You have to try to keep everyone happy. We've seen Stotts in the past only keep certain guys happy, and those are the guys he needs to keep happy to keep his job. But the veteran guys like a Melo, a Damian Lillard, a CJ McCollum are always going to be taken care of in Stotts systems or Stotts philosophies and his style. So I don't think Melo will have too many games like this where he doesn't play much in the second half. But I hope everybody's on board as long as they win, and that people realize, like, if I don't have a good first half, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm guaranteed playing time all the time. And I hope we didn't promise him that we'd get him post touches and all that crap. Like, that's just stupid.
That's so stupid.
If Stotts is coaching because he's being told he has to give Melo touches or he has to play Kanter over Giles, then I don't even know what we're doing. Like, why even play the games? Because we're not even, like, basing it on what's happening on the court. We're just doing it on paper.
And that would be people. Yeah, and that would be Olshay's fault. If that was the case. You know what I mean? That would be Olshey basically putting Stotts in a very tough position. I don't think that's the case, but it's just like...
I don't see Olshey saying that we need to change our style, but then... Stotts not changing his style, but then saying, like, he has to play these players a certain way, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, if that's the case, like, let him walk and bring in Ersan Ilyasova or somebody like that. Just somebody that can knock down the occasional 3, won't force bad shots, and can play okay defense. You know what I mean? Like, that if you have to promise Melo that much to keep him here, you're overpromising. Like, if he doesn't, like, that just says to me he doesn't really want to be here. If it's not him wanting what's best for the team compared to, like, okay, he needs all these post touches in order for him to stay here. You don't want a guy like that on the team who's like, okay, he needs to be constantly fed the ball in order to be happy coming off the bench, and it doesn't really matter about team success. I don't think he's that type of player, you know what I mean? Like, I think he gets a little hated on too much like that. I just don't know why you'd have to promise that, or why you would promise that.
And here's the problem with people excusing it away, Danny Meringue, as a promise. We just talked about it. Like, do you think if he was getting wide open threes and shooting 40% on like 4 or 5 threes a game, that he would be complaining about not getting a mid-range shot? You know what I mean? So, like, that's the whole point. We can get him touches and shots and stuff without it just being, oh, you have to give him 3 post touches a game or he's going to be unhappy. No way. He would be happy if he was hitting threes. So he'd love to be doing the 3 to the dome thing all game, hitting threes.
He'd probably be happier than he looked like tonight.
Yeah, so, like, there's no way you could tell me that Stotts has to get a pass because he has to do this. No, you can design your offense to get him better looks and more efficient looks. That's going to drive me crazy if that continues to be a narrative.
I mean, we might need to release this as just a separate video and stream clip, because this is an important topic, and Carmelo Anthony and the promises that were made, and, you know, his style of play leading into the season. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, dude, he did not look happy, and he's getting his post touches and his 20 minutes per game. You know, we shouldn't have to force feed him the ball. We played him like he looked happy very happy in the bubble. You know, he was starting, but we were utilizing him heavily as a catch and shoot player, and he was hitting clutch shots, and he was, you know, getting going because he was getting clean catch and shoot looks from three. You know, maybe he wouldn't get quite the same looks with the bench, but, you know, yeah, as you said, he'd be happy to hit that corner three, turn around, kind of give a little like side eye glance at the bench and start putting the three to his dome. He would be content with that. And and he did not look content tonight. So I don't know what was said, but the logic behind that and some of the things the media tries to spin it as to give Stotts a pass in that regard doesn't make any sense to me either.
Yeah, for sure.
Liam says who won. We literally have the score on the screen. We literally have the score on the screen. Yeah, hopefully you guys are liking the new graphics. Let me know what you think about the graphics in the comment section down below. Yeah, so Blockboy says, I'll say this, if we would have played the pick and roll against the Jazz the way we played in the second half against Houston, that game could have went different. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but Blockboy is our resident number one Carmelo fan, so generally we will kind of talk to him just about Melo's performance since he is a big Melo fan.
I think we're just pressuring the pick and roll better.
Yeah. Let's talk about Anthony, okay? Because Anthony got some minutes tonight, and Anthony looked solid. He let me update it here. Let me make sure it's updated. It's already there. Cool, perfect. 2 blocks, a steal, a jump ball that he forced. 2 for 5 from 3. He was 2 for 5 from the field. He only shot 3s though. 2 for 5 from 3. That's efficient. That's 40%. He had a good impact tonight. He came in, controlled the pace, didn't really make many mistakes. Didn't have to do too much playmaking wise. But here's the thing: is I'll touch on this in a sec. Actually, I'll touch on this right now. I want to talk about the argument about backup point guard versus Anthony Simons right now. Because if we had a traditional backup point guard, I don't think he would have played any different tonight in terms of, getting the ball moving. Because if our philosophy is really just to bring the ball up the court and dump the ball into the post to Melo or Kanter, why would getting a backup point guard change that? What would that change? You know, maybe we'd run a little bit more pick and roll, but we ran pick and roll with Anthony in the game, and he did fine. So I don't understand that argument whatsoever. I don't know if you want to touch on that, but I know it's just an ongoing thing. We need a backup point guard, and I don't agree with it. I think Anthony's fine, and I don't think it just changed the lack of ball movement or player movement with the bench lineup.
Well, you saw with how many minutes did Simons play tonight? Let's see. 9 minutes. So you saw him play 9 minutes, right? And Gary Trent only played how many minutes?
He played 6 minutes.
6 minutes. So if you're fine with bringing in a backup point guard so guys like Gary Trent Jr. doesn't play at all,
exactly,
that's fine. But for those 9 minutes, I don't think you're going to get much better. And we've seen this with numerous players. It doesn't really matter what player's style is, or if they're a good ball handler, or if they're good at setting up an offense. It doesn't really make a difference in our offense because we don't run our offense in a facilitating type of way. So it's kind of a moot point to have a distributing point guard when there's no plays or ball movement set up to distribute for them. Yeah. And there's some players who are so good. I mean, we talked about this with Harden, where they can create passing and situations, mismatches, open guys just because they're so good and draw so much defense. But, you're not going to get one of those guys for the minimum or whatever, so it doesn't really matter.
Agreed. His shot looks better, more arc. I think his shot will be better because he had more arc. I always said his shot is a little too flat. It looks like he's fixed that. That's encouraging. It looks like he has a little bit less of a thumb flick on his offhand, which is encouraging. I think his shot looks good. Added muscle. He finally looks like an NBA player. That's encouraging. His defense was encouraging. He played really good defense today, I thought, on a few different possessions. Controlled the pace well. I like what I saw from Anthony. You know, it's not like he had a spurt where he hit 3-4 threes in a row, but just the little things and what I saw from Anthony today, there's really nothing you can complain about.
Yep. I was surprised he got minutes in the first half, and then playing in the second half over Trent too. I was like, oh, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But this might give you a little bit of hint on if Anthony behind the scenes wasn't playing well or doing the right things or showing improvement, I don't think he gets a shot to play in this game tonight. So this is why I don't really like basing everything on a few minutes of a game necessarily because Anthony could be doing all the right things. We saw him training with Darren Collison over the summer. Maybe he picked up some things from him. Maybe he came back slightly better at a bunch of different things, and he's ready for that role. And everyone just assumed he's the same player as he was all of last year, which isn't necessarily the case because he's so young and has so much potential and so much growth talent there to like kind of develop. So like there's a chance he could break out this year in his third year and be a really good player. But like for some reason people don't want to give him that chance. It's just when we signed so many and traded for so many good players, it's kind of hard to see how he's going to get much more minutes than he got tonight, unless he like plays really well. But it's just nice to see him come in the game and not like completely mess up and actually do some things really well. Like you said, he wasn't a liability on defense, and that's something we need from him. And so yeah, I liked it.
Yep. Encouraged to see what he could bring going forward. Let's talk about Rodney Hood, and we'll tie this into Gary Trent Jr. not playing. Rodney Hood, 16 minutes, 3 points, 2 steals, 1 for 2 from the field. That was a corner three, catch and shoot three. He actually got good lift on it. It looked like Rodney Hood from last season, knocking down that corner three. He was phenomenal from the corner last season. Problem is, it's the only catch and shoot corner three he's gotten through these first 2 games in 32 minutes played. And this goes back to the style of play with the bench lineup, and I'm going to tie this into Gary Trent Jr. He is not getting looks off the bench because it's just dump the ball into Melo or Kanter and they post up and go one-on-one. He's the type of player that gets catch and shoot looks off of good ball movement and like good dribble penetration, collapsing the defense, kicked that to him for catch and shoots. Kind of like a Robert Covington. He can do more one-on-one than Robert Covington can, but you know, I feel like that part of his game is going to be the last thing to kind of get back in shape in terms of returning from this injury. And when it comes to like Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood, Gary Trent Jr. didn't shoot well in the first game, was 0 for 1 in 6 minutes this game, and then he gets benched. But Gary Trent Jr. is another like elite spot-up shooter who can do a little bit off the dribble, but mostly he's like a 3-and-D guy. And the way we're running things with our bench lineup, it's not utilizing 3-and-D guys properly whatsoever. You know, guys aren't getting clean looks in terms of catch and shoot from 3. And so with Trent getting benched this game, and with like Rodney Hood only getting 2 shots in 16 minutes, it's kind of like, it's just kind of frustrating because I feel like we have good shooters off the bench and we're not getting these guys good looks because they're catch and shoot type of players.
Yeah, completely agree. Touched upon it earlier. We need to find a way to get these good 3-point shooters going from the 3-point line, and that opens up the avenues for other people again. And yeah, so we just have to get a way to get him corner threes. We have to get him some corner threes. He shot like over 50%. I think he was even better than Melo from the corner last game. So, yeah, I was laughing about that too.
I wasn't going to say anything somebody else said. I was like,
that was my daughter, not my wife, but okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we need to find a way to get him going, whether that's coming off some screens, but like, how do guys like JJ Redick or all those kind of shooters, they get on other teams, they get open looks throughout the game,
off
and
screens.
We have to find a way to get them off ball screens and do something off ball.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can have Melo in a corner as a good corner 3-point shooter last year and run some sort of offense that utilizes Gary Trent Jr. running off a screen, or Rodney Hood running off a screen going to his left. You know, he can shoot that catch and shoot, or if his defender is trailing him, he could drive with his left hand into the paint and get shots towards the rim, and then maybe that collapses the defense, and he kicks out to Melo for an open corner 3. Like, that's the style of offense our bench should be running, and that's how we would be a top 10, maybe a top 5 bench, in my opinion, at least on the offensive end. But that's, you know, just kind of goes back to my issues with us just dumping the ball into the post every single possession, because it's not utilizing guys like this. And now Trent's benched. I'm sure he's not happy. Rodney Hood, like, is still getting playing time, but he's not getting decent looks, and that's the thing. I feel like we're underutilizing a lot of players on the roster on the offensive end.
And until he gets back to, you know, feeling comfortable again playing, that's something that could get him going. Like it seemed like he took a charge in this game after that. Like it felt like hitting that three got him going, but then he didn't like really get a good shot opportunity after that. So I just wish we could get him going just like Melo, with a good shot in his comfort zone, and then hopefully see him play better after that. But like if he knocks it down, we need to find a way to get him another threes in the next few possessions to see if he can hit another one. Dame and CJ would get another three if they hit a 3-point shot. So if we have good 3-point shooters, we need to find ways to get them the ball.
Yep, 100% agree. So, that kind of wraps up the individual players. We can take your questions for a few minutes before we log off here. I don't know what you want to do with this postgame show, but as we usually do, we talk about some team-based things, then we go through the individual players. Let me run through the box score for the Houston Rockets in case anybody's interested. James Harden had 44 points and 17 assists on 12 for 22 shooting. He shot 16 free throws. Had 4 turnovers with those 17 assists. That's a pretty good assist-turnover ratio. He looked phenomenal tonight for a guy who doesn't want to be there.
He does still look really pudgy.
Yeah. It doesn't matter for him. He's still quick, though. That's the thing.
I know. How is he that quick? And he looks like he hasn't played basketball in like 4 months. But he's like
looks homeless, man. The hair is just out of control, and he just comes in and casually drops 44 and 17. That's crazy, man. We talked about like the James Harden trade possibility with him possibly wanting to come to Portland. We talked about that at the start of the stream. In case you want to watch that.
One quick thing about that. So Reese keeps bringing it up.
Oh, yeah. I want to touch on this for sure.
He wanted us to mention that there was a picture of Neil Shea talking to the Rockets GM while watching Harden warm up from this game.
That means nothing.
I wouldn't say it means nothing. I mean, it's not often that you see Olshey out there before a game, like talking to another team's GM. That doesn't mean we're trading for Harden or anything, but they did. You have to remember they did complete a trade a few weeks ago for Robert Covington. They could have been talking about the process from that, or they could be developing a relationship there. But
here's the thing, though. If it wasn't the Rockets GM and it was just like some random team and him talking to Utah's GM, we wouldn't hear anything about it. We wouldn't see a picture about it. Nobody would say anything about it. We wouldn't know about it. But because of the Rockets GM, oh my goodness, 2 GMs are talking. Dude, GMs talk to each other all the time. Like, people are like, oh my goodness, it's going to happen. Alvaro said that. And it's like, man, it doesn't mean anything. People get too, into taking one little thing and then spinning it into some big prediction. And it's like, no, just because 2 GMs are talking before this game doesn't mean we're trading for James Harden. Doesn't mean we're making maybe the biggest trade in franchise history. This doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it means we're trading for him, but I mean, it's possible they were discussing the perimeters or what, if either side would be interested in any of that. And just that picture and Harden expanding his list to Portland, it's just kind of cool that we're actually not, I wouldn't say in the mix, but we're a possibility. And then you have the Giannis stuff too, with him wanting to pair up with Dame and stuff like that. So I think I don't know if it's probably not with Harden. We can talk about this on another stream, the more specific CBA reasons why we won't get Harden. But I feel like this is building momentum for it to happen one of these times when one of these superstars becomes available, and that's kind of exciting.
Yep. I mean, it's cool hearing 2 top 10 players be interested in coming to Portland. The Giannis thing with Dame, and then he ended up resigning. But it's cool to hear that as a small market. Outside of Harden with his 44, you had Christian Wood drop 31 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists on 14 for 22 shooting, 0 for 2 from the three-point line. I was so bummed out when they picked him up because that's such a great pickup, especially at only $13 million a year, and he had a great game tonight. They do got some good pieces there. If DeMarcus Cousins kind of bounces back and John Wall kind of bounces back, they do have some talent there. If they were fully healthy, they definitely would have beat us tonight. But, yeah, Christian Wood is just another one of those decent pieces. He looked good tonight.
I still don't know what the heck Detroit... What...
I don't know why they gave him up, man. It doesn't make sense.
Well, why would you choose the route you did over not re-signing this guy, especially at that price tag? I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised he didn't get more offers. Yeah, there must be something behind the scenes that we don't know about, but it's just crazy to me. You saw how talented he was. I mean, he literally just blew by Nurkic a couple times and dunked the ball.
Yeah.
he's he's like really like he's so much better of a fit. Maybe not defensively 100%, but offensively with James Harden, he's like almost a perfect fit, like big man wise off that role, because he can shoot the ball, he can drive, he can handle the ball a little bit, he's quick, he's a quick jumper. So like there's so many things they can do out of those pick and roll situations now. So that's going to be tough to stop all season. And they didn't even have their full complement of a roster around those two guys to like show that. So I mean, luckily for us, they didn't have a full team. Otherwise, we might have got blown out again. But Christian Wood's a nice player, man.
Yeah, great pickup for them. Outside of that, their third leading scorer was actually Jae'Sean Tate off the bench. He's kind of surprised he played 37 minutes, but he was 5 for 9 from the field, 1 for 4 from the three-point line, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Played decent defense. I mean, undrafted guy who was a pretty well-known player in college at Ohio State, but he's just an undrafted guy. Maybe he becomes a role player for them long-term, kind of like a Daniel House Jr. has become, kind of like how Gary Clark was for a little bit, and then ended up getting traded to Orlando, and then kind of is in and out of the rotation there. I mean, maybe this is just early signs of an undrafted player coming into the league, becoming a role player. Maybe this is like his first, this is his first NBA game, isn't it?
Yeah, this is their first game of the season.
Yeah, so this was his first NBA game, and he had a very solid first NBA game as an undrafted rookie. He went undrafted, I think, a year or two ago. So, yeah, good game from him.
I think they said they had five of their 9 players were undrafted.
Christian Wood is one of those. Nwaba, Jae'Sean Tate, Broderick Thomas, and the fifth one is Daniel House. So, yeah, 5 undrafted players there. They had 11 from House on 3 for 8 shooting. They had 10 from David Nwaba. It's nice to see him back after tearing his Achilles last year. He's a pretty underrated player if he plays like how he did last year. He's a solid 3-and-D guy. Sterling Brown was 4 for 5 from the field and 2 for 3 from the three-point line. He normally doesn't shoot anywhere near that well. He had 10 points off the bench for them. PJ Tucker had 7, was 3 for 10 from the field, 1 for 4 from the three-point line. He does not shoot anything but corner threes. It's like if he catches the ball open on the three-point line, doesn't even look to the rim unless he's in the corner. I don't know what that is, but it's very, very weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the better three-point shooters from the corner. But did you hear them talk about how he set the record for the lowest amount of free throw attempts per minutes played or something?
Really? That's crazy.
They said when he missed 2 free throws in the second half, and they said he was like the first player ever to have over 2,800 minutes and have less than 60 free throw attempts in a season.
That's insane, man.
Yeah,
that's insane. You got polar opposites with James Harden and him in that regard.
Yeah. How do you not like get fouled like on a loose ball or like in the penalty on a rebound or something?
Especially a guy that like mixes it up.
Right. Yeah.
Like
physical.
That. Yeah. That's crazy. Other than him, you had Bruno Caboclo only played 4 minutes. I was a bit surprised. He didn't do anything. Broderick Thomas. I looked this guy up yesterday because I'd never heard of him, and it's rare for a guy to be like in an NBA game, even as a two-way player, and I have never heard of them. That's very, very rare because I'm nerdy like that. And he was D2 player that averaged like 18 points per game off like 47% field goal percentage and 31% three-point percentage. That was D2, not even a D1 guy. This is his first NBA game. He didn't look too bad out there considering he's a D2 guy on a two-way contract. I don't know, what they see in him necessarily.
So he's their Keljin Blevins.
Yeah, he's their Keljin Blevins. Yeah, he didn't score in his 10 minutes, but yeah, it's always kind of wild to see. He did have 3 assists and 3 rebounds, so actually did something in the box score. But it's always kind of crazy to see a guy go from that level to the NBA and see how they look.
Yeah. That's even funnier that they're actually a guy like that's playing in an NBA game, like seeing meaningful minutes,
Yeah, put me in. Let's see how I look. And let me get in shape and train for a year. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I would like to see if I could put points on the board. Give me like 36 minutes. I feel like I could maybe get 1 bucket.
Honestly, I mean, if the Blazers aren't going to use their other second two-way, why don't they like have a contest and let a fan be in
I
or
know,
something?
I know.
They never, if they're never going to play, what's the difference between just having someone never play and having someone get an opportunity of a lifetime?
Oh, I know. Put me in there. I can get the inside scoop on everything. Reese posted in the chat that Nasir Little will play next game according to his sources, which Reese, I actually kind of believe Reese on that. So yeah, little woes.
Well, he'll be available to play next game.
Available,
he'll be playing, unfortunately.
But Reese does have a source on that, so I'm
Yep,
not gonna leak his source. But Reese actually does have a source on that, so yeah, that's our first sourced information leak ever in the history of the channel. So congrats, Reese. Yeah, leave your questions. We'll probably log off here in a couple minutes. We'll be live on Monday at 3:30 p.m. We'll have picks against the spread. We'll be ready to go for that. Hopefully my internet doesn't completely do what it did last time, because that was rough with not even being able to get a stream up on my end or even be on Eric's stream because he ran the stream. But should have the little delayed season premiere picks against the spread. Won't have 13 games this time. We'll have 7. That'll be nice. Shout out Kyle Wilson, $5 donation. He said, Blazers just signed me. I scored 50 on day once, but the cameras weren't on. We'll have pickup runs once the pandemic is gone. We will organize pickup runs. We'll rent out a public gym and something, and you guys can come try to beat me one-on-one, because I know there's a lot of people that think they can beat me one-on-one. We can see if you guys can hang, so to say. You're gonna say something, then you bit your tongue, huh?
No.
Yeah, it looked like it.
No, I was just wondering if you wanted to get to the thing I was going to tell you about.
Oh yeah, what was that?
So you made a tweet about, and I said I'll tell you in the post-game show or whatever. It was about like all the excuses from the Blazer media broadcasting or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, during this game, I heard we were kind of winning early in the game, and then the Rockets took the lead 20-19, and I heard, don't forget, Houston still has plenty of talent, so they could easily win this game. And then I heard we're still trying to fit in a bunch of new pieces. We have to do our development on the court because we don't have a lot of practice time. There was the short preseason. There hasn't been much of a training camp. We need more games to gel. Haven't had the time to get to know everybody and their intricacies on the court. This is all stuff like I heard within a minute span on
out of our 10 player rotation. We have 3 new players, dude. They're playing Jayshawn Tate, Broderick Thomas, Christian Wood, David Nwaba. Like, those excuses apply much more to them than they do to us.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, use that same energy on the other team. And then I realized that certain people have to sugarcoat things. I'm glad we don't have to sit here and flat out lie to our audience about what's going on. I would have trouble doing that. I mean, obviously it would be awesome to be an announcer or some sort of paid job with the Blazers, but it would get to me mentally having to polish complete crap like that on live TV.
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree. So that's the thing. I don't know. I get frustrated with them, and then it's like, oh yeah, they can't really say anything too critical. It's kind of, from the top down, that's kind of the way it is. And you've heard announcers in the past get let go for being a little too critical. So yeah, I get that part of it. It just kind of sucks because those excuses annoy me. Chiefin, in regards to playing me one-on-one, says, you trash Tory, drop you off anytime. I would snatch your ankles. Don't mess with me. We will get those pickup runs after everything is blown over. I can't wait. Yes,
Chiefin was scared to play me, so he didn't even show up. So
yeah, man, y'all don't want to mess with Eric. He's the true definition of a rec league big man. Yeah, so that'll be fun.
I hate playing 1-on-1.
Yeah, I'm what 3-0. Because I knocked down threes. If I wasn't shooting well, you probably would beat me. It just comes down to if I can knock down threes. Because Eric lets me have that shot.
Andre, happy birthday, man.
Yeah, happy birthday to Andre. Eric, I'm 6'4", Eric's 6'6". So yeah, we're both decent size. We'd be short in the NBA, but for a rec league or something, or for pickup games, we got a little size. We're not, Casey Holdall or anything. Anyway, yeah, it'll be fun to play pickup games, man. I just want to play basketball. Now that basketball season's back, I'm just like, I'm itching to play. I'm ready to go. But, we got to wait on the rest of the world to figure this all out.
Dude, I just wanted to say something about you. Tonight, I had never felt like saying more than your favorite comment to someone. I feel like the people who say certain things have never played a game of actual basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like saying that tonight. I was like, that sounds like something Tori would say. But it was so obvious. Like, the people who say certain things, like, you could tell that they have no idea, like, what they're saying in regards to X's and O's or like playing style or whatever.
I rarely say that. I can't remember the last time I said that, but yeah, I'm like tempted to say that, and it's like, let's not be too toxic or negative, and it's just like, you know, that's how things go. But Simon, I don't know what that's a 5-minute ban-worthy comment. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, so I don't know. We're gonna wrap up the stream. Thank you guys for tuning in. Glad the Blazers could get a win tonight. Thank you to everybody who donated. Subscribe to our streaming channel, Blazers Uprise Live. Link in the top of the description below. We'll be live again at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Before, who do we play on the 28th? Is it the Lakers or the Clippers? Chat, let me know.
Lakers first.
Lakers first. Okay, so we will preview that.
Clippers. Yeah.
Okay, so we will preview that game on Monday.
No, Reese messed me up.
Oh my God!
I thought it was.
What is it, Eric?
Reese should have his mod privileges revoked.
Yeah,
I said Lakers and then he said Clippers, so I thought I was wrong.
I'd give him a 5-minute ban if it didn't delete his messages, but yeah. So we'll preview the Lakers game on Monday over on our second streaming channel, Blazers Uprise Live. As I said, link down below. That'll go live at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll do picks against the spread and all that good stuff. We're back to our normal stream times. We used to have those over here, but we made a second streaming channel. Part of it is just for how YouTube works and how having too many streams on one channel affects it negatively. Like, it's a whole thing. It's just a bunch of YouTube stuff. That's why we created a second channel for that. We're almost at 1,000 subs. It'd be nice to hit 1,000 over there. And yeah, we're live Monday, Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll have the post-game show after that Lakers game. Hopefully we're talking about a win, but honestly, if the team improves their style of play and still loses, I won't be too upset with that at all. If the team plays a solid game in terms of the way they play, and the Lakers win because they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, that's okay. And I just want to see improvement in terms of the way this team is playing basketball. Of course, it's always nice to get wins, but long term, we need to fix some things and improve some of the things we're doing out there on the court. So yeah, that's the schedule for next week. It's been a little scarce on the videos lately. We'll try and pick that back up. I will post a prompt in the community tab asking for mailbag questions for Monday mailbag that I'll be dropping in a couple days. Try and make the questions unique and stuff that I haven't answered on previous mailbags if you watched them. Definitely don't want to make those too repetitive, and I know you guys probably got some good questions for us, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Follow me on Twitter at ToryJonesYT. Eric is at HoopsJock. Blazers Uprise Twitter's account is Blazers Uprise YT. You can follow us to be notified of anything that we drop or anything that we do with the channel. Other than that, that's a wrap for this post-game show. We'll catch you guys later. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. And until next time, as always, peace out.